Three, two, one.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our annual State of the Schools address. Appreciate you tuning in with us this evening. Obviously, my name is Joe Knowles, Superintendent here. You'll also be hearing from our treasurer, Ms. Katie Brugger, and Mrs. Carol Sutton as our Assistant Superintendent tonight. We all have some pieces and parts of the presentation, and I will get things started. As always, we try to build our discussions around our three pillars of accountability, being transparent, and being innovative at a high level of education. This is year one of our 5-year strategic plan. Obviously, because of COVID, things kind of got cut short a little bit, but we do have a lot of things, a lot of exciting information to present to you tonight after year one of our plan. So we're going to start with the first goal, talking about awareness. And this is being aware and coming up with communication strategies, dealing with our community. The big piece trying to be two-way communication with students, parents, and community members. So letter A under this goal was to create and implement communication strategies that help to support, engage, and develop partnerships. So Mr. Rogers was our key point man on this. And some of his recommendations on what we have been doing and continue to do: keep our news and views, work with our local newspaper, the Alliance Review, spend as much time as we can on social media, and we do have a great presence there. Keep developing our care teams, work with our PTO, our nonprofit organizations like the 467 group, keep them in mind. And then you can also see some of the other things as well listed there. Letter B, establish regular community forums in an effort to share news, but specifically connect with community members that no longer have a direct connection to the district, which means they don't actually have a child that is attending. So I was the point person on this and basically came up with two recommendations for this school year. They were my Cup of Joe series and our mental health and wellness seminars. We obviously weren't able to hold all of those, but got a bunch of our Cup of Joes in, and sadly only one of our mental health and wellness seminars, but great ideas, off to a great start in that goal. Letter C, increase opportunities for student internships and mentorships within the community, and Mr. Miller had this goal for us. Some of his recommendations for juniors: have a one-day job shadow experience, and seniors have 2 days in place of college visits if they choose not to go, and keep working on community service projects, internships, and expanding our job fair at the high school. Letter E, enhance the methods and frequency of internal staff communications to make sure all of us are up to date on what's going on. Mr. Evanich was the point man here, and his goal was actually completed. These are some of his recommendations. Use the all call to text our staff and parents. And I've been using that specifically at the end of this school year, obviously every week, to kind of give our parents an update with our remote learning. Mr. Swisher was tasked with a special ed monthly letter that he's put out. Enrichment Fridays for our staff members, where they come and talk about exciting things to do in the classroom and sharing best practices. I put out a payday update. We have the traditional Mr. Graholi games. We worked hard in getting our transportation staff connected to email, Google Calendars, our weekly updates, and staff meetings also. Mrs. Sutton, let me turn it over to you.
Unmute myself. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk about our 5-year strategic plan and our goals related to curriculum, technology, and post-graduation. We have several goals. The first is continue to review and improve academic programming offerings pre-K to 12. Part B, create and implement a district master technology plan. Part C, increase student and parent awareness and participation in career technical education initiatives. Part D, strengthen the implementation of strategies and services utilized to ensure remediation-free graduates. Part E, perform an audit of all the tools, text, hardware, software currently in use to ensure efficiency, effectiveness, and purpose. And finally, review current special education, life skills, and gifted programming to ensure all students have access to appropriate and engaging curriculum, increase opportunities to inform parents and students of their educational services, offered by the district. So just a few highlights about our first goal: review and improve academic programming, PK-12. Some of the big highlights there are we increased College Credit Plus courses, again at the high school, taught by our own faculty. We rearranged the elementary STEAM schedule to try to enhance student experiences there. We offered life skills at the middle school, which was a collaborative effort. We also added an aeronautics course at the high school through our Project Lead the Way and Matt Denny's engineering course. Some of the things that we continue to do because they're good quality things. Elementary instructional coach, our monthly BLT meetings, our weekly TBT and content grade level meetings, our monthly department chair meetings. We had about 5 of those this year. Of course, we didn't get to continue those face-to-face meetings after COVID. And then expanding academic electives at the high school. We're always continuing to revisit those, audit those, and make sure that we're offering as many academic electives as we can. The next thing is our master technology plan. We are nearly there. We're planning to have a last meeting in April to put that together, and COVID got in the way of that. So we're hoping to bring our B2LT team together and finish up that master technology plan and have it ready to go by the fall. Career Tech. Very proud of some of the things that we're offering in Career Tech, some of the things that we've done to create awareness and recruit some of our students, or we purchase and install TVs in the cafeteria that display all of our Career Tech photos and our students. We also held a trade day with Alliance. We switch our Alliance sophomores come to our district, and our Marlington sophomores go to Alliance, and we check out each other's programmings, and we're always hopeful that more Alliance students come to us. We developed brochures to pass out to the students and post online about all of our Career Tech courses. We developed a system of tracking sophomore students to ensure that we meet with each one of them if they're not already enrolled on a CCP track or another track. We want to make sure that we offer them our great opportunities in Career Tech. Our English teachers and history teachers provided class time to promote, and we held our first open house where parents and students alike were invited to tour any of our Career Tech options, and then of course our advisory boards. Some of the highlights: we held our first field day last year and our first FFA Olympics. We held our first floral contest, and our students went to Worcester ATI to compete in Landscape Olympics. Our very own Miss Chelsea Herrick, our oil and gas program, has been published now twice in the Buckeye Trapper, and most recently in the Ohio Outdoor News for the Duck Box Challenge. Our oil and gas students also connected PVC pipes to form a mock gas line that a golf ball would travel through with obstacles. Those are, that was fun. And then the FFA held a fishing derby with prizes for grades 7 through 12. Remediation-free graduates. At the high school, for the first time ever, we offered title services and title tutoring to our students in the lowest 20%. We restructured academic assist times so we could partner students with teachers in forming relationships, and then they would mentor students both in all areas, but most especially academics. And then we continue to target our students with disabilities so we can bridge those gaps and set goals for them for academic progress. Goal E, perform and audit all of our tools, text, hardware, software. E-rate planning, which the board accepted that proposal last month. That's been one of our major restructures, or one of the major goals that we've been trying to get going in the district, to add access points, switches, and cabling. And then we are constantly reviewing through teacher feedback, usage reports, viability of the products, the lifespan of our hardware and software, and student academic performance feedback, cost versus effectiveness. For instance, MacBooks versus MacBooks, moving from MacBooks to iPads. We're moving away from some of our curriculum complementary software like Define STEM, Pear Deck, and Respondus. Our teachers are either not using them or they're just not cost effective for us any longer. And finally, special education. There's a lot going on always in areas of special education, including our gifted. Champions Day was held in the fall. That's always a very well attended and fun day for our students with special abilities. Special education awards were offered last year for our students. Mr. Swisher does a really good job of putting together a monthly newsletter for our special education staff and families. He's hoping to expand upon that for next year. For our students who are gifted, we do all grade screenings in grades 2 and 5 using the Iowa COGAT, sorry about that. And we use all grade screening every year using our MAP in grades 2 through 9. Gifted acceleration and placement meetings are held with our families, and we follow compliance with parent notification and assessment results. Our staff attends training, and most recently, our very own Heather Craig did a Google Meet through the Stark County ESC to provide professional learning opportunities for our teachers who have gifted students in their classroom. We have several teams, 5 teams, I believe, that participate in our annual math competition that's sponsored by the ESC and held in March. And there's a multitude of other things that I could talk about: career-based training, special education job and training coordination that we work with we partner with Alliance City Schools. Our students in our MD units have expanded their life skills outings. They now go 2 times a month, at least once a month, to area churches, the Goodwill, the Y, restaurants, and movies to learn life skills and safety skills. Some of our big highlights that I wanted to talk about this year, I guess our biggest and the most challenging that is remote learning and our preparedness for remote learning. That could not have happened, first and foremost, without our staff being prepared, both in skill set and mindset. That happened through years of planning and professional learning. That also was made possible because of the products that our students have, the devices that our students have, because we're an Apple district, and because of our learning management system, Schoology. We also have done a really good job here preparing our students with 21st century skills that are inclusive of not just the 4 C's, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, but also citizenship, creativity, media literacy, flexibility, initiative, information literacy, productivity, and social skills. We've also, during this remote learning, created a live binder that hosted resources for our families, and that can be found on any of our building web pages, including our landing page, the district landing page, and that is constantly updated. In fact, we've added several things today as resources become available to us for our families to help with the remote learning process. And then finally, I want to personally pass a huge shout out to our families and our students who have stuck through all of this and who have remained positive and committed to learning. It takes a village, and it takes our families. And so thank you for that. So, and that's just a recap of where we were and what we've done.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right, Ms. Treasurer.
Mrs. Berger, you're muted.
There we are. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we're good.
All right. In my piece of this, ensuring all measures of local, state, and federal compliance are met in a timely manner, our office meets these goals by having successful audits, processing cash requests timely to align with spending, and meeting reporting requirements set forth. Speaking specifically to the completion of our recent federal funds audit, since I've been with the district. We continue in letter E to how we continue to educate local stakeholders regarding the district budget and outside factors that impact the district financially. Education is provided through board meeting updates and 5-year forecasts, as well as the district website.
Okay, I'll jump back in here with goal number 4 related to facility. This goal talks about providing and maintaining state-of-the-art facilities and infrastructure that are safe, clean, and welcoming, and ensuring a proactive commitment to updates and improvements of district property and facilities. And letter C, this is to create a comprehensive district facilities plan that allows for proactive future planning. And this goal falls on our Board of Education. And as you can see, we're at Q3 of 2020. And thus far, I call it phase 1. The board has decided to move forward with all 3 of our elementary schools to include lighting updates, repairs to a roof, and HVAC projects. Letter F, conduct a safety and security audit of all of our district buildings to ensure best practice implementation. And as you can see, this goal is completed in Q4 of 19. We're supposed to measure and report out. And I am happy to report out that we have conducted vulnerability assessments in each of our buildings. We work together in collaboration with the Stark County Sheriff's Office, specifically our 2 SROs, Deputy Collins and Deputy Bogdanovich. And as always, I want to thank them for all their time and effort. We were one of the first schools in Stark County to get those vulnerability assessments done this past school year, which was real nice to say and be able to do. And finally, goal number 5 under climate and culture, to build a culture of inclusion, collaboration, open-minded, safety, and respect, so that every staff member, student, parent, faculty feels welcome and inspired as a member of our family. So goal A was to take a look at increasing student and parent awareness and participation in the athletics, arts, and other co-curricular opportunities. And Mr. Farrell, initially he was given this task to, first of all, take a look at some participation data across those ideas and findings from last year. Our band numbers, choir numbers, as you can see, very nice. And you can also see our athletics as of last school year, fall, winter, and spring as well. So this kind of goes with my connectedness, whole idea of concept, get kids connected to something good, positive experiences, make relationships. And that's a perfect example in that goal. Letter B, assess the effectiveness of programming aimed at providing the best possible resources to families on the importance of educating the whole child. And Mrs. Mort was given this goal. And her first concept was to kind of take a look and assess our current programming. So these are her observations. We have posted and discussed a lot of resources with families on our website. We have licensed school counselors and mental health counselors in our buildings. We work close with our child and adolescent behavior folks, and we do have 2 individual folks called family support specialists, the 2 Cathys, that serve our families in a fantastic way. As many of you know, we offer blessings in a backpack to our elementary kids. We offered free breakfast this past year in elementary schools. And that last bullet item, you can see a ton of clubs and activities that we do. You know, once again, going with that whole idea of being connected. You can see all of those that we do to keep our kids engaged throughout the district. That hardening versus heartening piece that I've been talking about for a lot of years. This is the heartening piece example right here. Letter C, continue to educate students, parents, and staff on mental health awareness and available resources. And once again, Mrs. Mort was asked to kind of take a look at what we have done and what that platform looks like. We do have a lot of mental health resources on our district website. Under that mental health tab, there's hotline numbers and other links there for you. There's information about getting support for crisis and difficult situations. You've seen in my Tuesdays with Mr. Noel that I've been putting out, I try to include some type of mental health resource there for our parents. And we do have licensed school counselors and professional counselor contacts as well. Letter E, increase methods to support and demonstrate appreciation of district staff, and develop recruitment and retention strategies. And Mr. Rogers was tasked with this goal, so we can see some of his observations. Some things that we do as administrators, we write a lot of appreciation notes, give gifts, words of appreciation in our updates. Principals like to check in with teachers during observations to see how things are going. Provide lunch and dinners for the staff at random times. Our PTOs at the elementary level are just awesome, do a lot of great things to show appreciation. Back in May, we had our traditional staff appreciation week, a little bit different this year, obviously virtual, but we had a lot of nice activities going on around the district. Duke Strong gift card winners, a nice shout out here to our newspapers. They have done a great job with Teacher of the Month recognition. We really appreciate that and recognize those folks in our weekly updates as well. And in the area of retention, we continue to develop and cultivate a positive culture of support and appreciation, which I think is critical for teacher retention. Letter D, increased implementation of positive behavior intervention and support. We call that PBIS throughout the district. Mr. Evanich was the man behind the scenes on PBIS, and we have a couple recommendations, things that we're doing. At the high school specifically, we have gift card winners, teacher recognitions, Duke of the Month. Folks went to a tribe game, and there are 12 staff members on that committee. At the middle school, Mr. Evans has 7 staff members that meet for about 30 minutes a month. There are different matrices posted throughout the school. Duke's on the Rise recognition every 9 weeks. Duke Strong tickets, a lot of positive quotes and thoughts posted throughout the building on the TVs, walls, and lockers. And our elementary folks are also jumping in there with the school matrix materials, Duke Pride tickets, a lot of student leadership groups. Some of my favorites, the Guys with Ties and Girls Club, Student Council. Conversations on grade level building expectations and responsibilities, and Duke Pride expectations as well. Well, before we wrap up here, I know Ms. Sutton kind of spoke to this a little bit, but I just put a plethora of pictures that we've been taking over the last few months as we've been working our way through the whole COVID thing. I just want to speak specifically to our employees and thank them. We'll start with our administrators and overall supervisors. I really appreciate all the work you guys have put in, especially trying to keep track of teachers and assignments and questions from parents that are coming in, and then developing these end of year plans for 5th grade and 8th grade graduations and high school graduation. These guys are putting in a ton of time and effort, and I want to thank them for that. And then device pickup and cleaning out lockers and getting all the materials ready for the kids as well. It has definitely been a collaborative effort, and I want to thank all of our administrators and supervisors for that. And then obviously, as Ms. Sutton pointed out, our teachers, they were well prepared. We didn't miss a beat going from regular school, traditional school to this online piece. Obviously some bumps in the road, but you guys have done a great job navigating the waters, getting information to our parents and our kids. And hats off to all of you for a job well done as we get ready to wrap up the school year. And then we go to our folks behind the scenes a lot of times, our secretaries, our cooks, our aides, our bus drivers, our custodians. Those folks have been working like crazy. As you know, we've been feeding all kinds of people throughout the district, which has been awesome. I'll throw the SROs in there as well. You can see a couple pictures there of those folks doing some awesome things, getting food out. We're using our transportation, our bus folks to get the food out to different places here as we move forward in the summer as well, to try to continue to meet some needs in our community. So, and then I guess finally, I would be remiss if I didn't thank those parents that are listening tonight. I know this has been a tough time, a tough transition, but we really appreciate your efforts and working collaboratively with our teachers to bring education home. Obviously, without you and your support, there's no way we would have been able to pull this off. And a big thanks to those of you that completed the survey that I fired home to you a couple of weeks ago. Had over 300 folks respond. That information is critical. It was kind of like a little halfway assessment on how we're doing. I haven't had a chance to read through all that yet, but we'll get there. But I'm seeing a lot of great comments, and we're going to use a lot of that data as we prepare for what the fall might look like here moving forward. So just a nice thank you and appreciation for everybody for all your efforts as we've worked our way through the year. So with that, we'll say a big thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome, guys. Am I back to just a regular screen, just to be safe?
Thank
you, Joe.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Your camera's a little high. That's Joe.
How about that?
That's better right there.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gabrick, that concludes our State of the Schools address.
Okay, we ready to move right into the regular meeting then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I call the meeting to order, the regular meeting of the Marlington Local School District Board of Education on May 21st, 2020 at 6:56 p.m. Mr. Knoll, would you have our invocation, please?
I sure will. You bow your heads, please. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for another beautiful day and another opportunity to gather. I just thank you for the opportunity to serve here along with our board members and staff members here at Marlington, Lord. We just thank you so much for the opportunity. We ask you to be with us tonight, our decisions and our discussion, Lord, today we be pleasing to you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of
America.
for which
America, which is
God visible, justice.
Liberty, justice for all.
The reading of our mission statement will be by Dr. Mason.
In collaboration with staff, community, parents, and students, the Marlington Local School District will develop lifelong learners who understand and apply knowledge and demonstrate excellence in pursuing the highest standards with effective intervention to challenge every student.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purposes of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Mrs. Brugel, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick,
Here.
Mr. Hagan,
Here.
Ms. Humphries,
Here.
Dr. Mason,
Here.
Mrs. Stevens.
here.
Adoption of the meeting agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
The only thing I have a question about is we all received a certified letter from Marlington Matters. I didn't know when or if we were going to discuss what was said in that from that LLC.
That is not on the agenda for this evening. Due to the content of that letter, that is being handled at the moment by the at the recommendation of the attorney. It's being handled alternately and not in a public meeting at this moment, Scott.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other additions or corrections?
Can I just? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have concerns about getting the agendas late. We keep getting them at like last minute. And like the May 11th special meeting, we received that agenda, the final agenda, 1 hour before the meeting. I don't think that's what it's supposed to look like when we have these meetings. So that's concerning to me. Pardon me?
I said I think we'd all.
Mr. Knoll, do you want to speak to that? I know that the information has been coming to you, and then it's been, I mean, you've been posting it out. I know the special meeting, the information was provided a few days ahead of the meeting, and I believe you were waiting on some final documentation on that.
Yeah, that's when we were talking with the attorneys to kind of get all the resolutions put together. I'll speak specifically to today. We had a meeting this morning talking about the Marlboro Roof project. So, Ms. Humphries, that's kind of what slowed things down before I was able to get all that information and get it sent out and get it to Miss Packy so she could get it on there and flip it. We call flip it to get it to you guys in a final format. So some of that lag time was due to me getting everything put together. To be honest with you.
Well, I certainly
Joe, I
don't
think
think
it's
that's an
important
issue.
to mention that there was an agenda discussion on Tuesday, and I think probably at least 95% of the agenda was ready then. But Karen, we
Right.
did discuss options for getting it out early. I think we're going to start having agenda discussions on Friday before the regular meeting, and then that way more things will be in the meeting in the agenda for the on Friday. And then hopefully there'll be fewer adjustments that would be needed added at the last minute. So hopefully going forward, we have discussed that because we know it's inconvenient for all of us to get it at that late point.
I also want to know who created the agenda, who was part of creating the agenda.
Mr. Knoll puts the draft agenda up on Friday. And then on Tuesday, Mr. Knoll and Katie, the vice president, myself, and Mr. Markling had an agenda discussion on Tuesday. And then I think Mr. Knoll mentioned to you, then there was an additional meeting that was held this morning. I think this morning in regard to the last piece of that resolution that he put on in regard to the roof.
I understand there are things like the roof, so that's not an issue, but I'm concerned again that we are paying $285 per hour for an attorney to be involved in putting an agenda together when our board bylaw states it's 0165-1 that it shall be the responsibility of the superintendent in cooperation with the board president to prepare an agenda of the items of business to come before the board at each regular meeting. It just seems like overkill to have 5 people and one of them being paid $285 per hour to create an agenda. That doesn't seem to me, I just want to state clearly, it's not wise use of taxpayer dollars.
Is there a recommendation that the Marlington Local Board of Education adopt the following agenda for the May 21st, 2020 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mrs. Berger, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No,
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-1.
Special presentations, Mr. Knoll, are you doing the special presentations?
Yep. Can you all see my screen?
yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, this is a great time of the year in the month of May where we have always recognized 2 groups of people, our retirees and 20-year recognition. And we've always brought folks together and had a nice time of food and fellowship. But obviously this year, we're not going to be able to do that. But I hope I have a good plan for you. Let's start with our retirees. How about some pictures? All right. This is Miss Lois Griffith, works over the cafeteria at Lexington Elementary. We want to wish her well on her retirement. And we have Pam Kraft, who was the secretary at Marble Elementary and then helped us out a little bit over at Lexington before she retired as well. Christine McLaughlin, language arts teacher over at the high school. Best wishes on her retirement. And finally, senior Spanish teacher at the high school. So wishing all those folks the best on their retirement. Next, we have our 20-year recognition. And we do appreciate all of you. We'll start with Ms. Tierney Bratton, who is a teacher here at the middle school, computers and life skills. Ms. Catherine Eversdyke, who is our vocal music teacher here at the middle school as well. Tracy Hatfield, bus driver. Sabrina Hellman, bus driver, class of 1984 with myself. Heidi Hildebrand, educational assistant over at Washington. Ms. Rhonda Kaiser, educational assistant at Lexington. Deb Kimball, intervention specialist at Lexington Elementary. Ms. Becky Myers, language arts and social studies teacher at Lexington. Mr. Jeff Oyster, math teacher, high school. Ms. Megan Quintus, art teacher here at the middle school. And Ms. Sherry Sickles, our transportation director. So we want to give a special shout out to all of those 20-year recognition folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Administrative reports, the food service report by Mrs. Sutton.
Yep, thank you. I'm proud to report that Marlington Local Schools has adopted as an enforcing nutritional standards policy that considers the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code 3313.814 and governs the types of food and beverages that may be sold on the premises of its schools. Food Services has continued to monitor nutrition standards and make the necessary changes and revisions to remain in compliance. And I'd like to give a special shout out to all of our food service employees and educational aides and bus drivers who have made grab and go and delivering meals possible. As of last week, we have served over 12,000, nearly 13,000 breakfasts and lunches. That's not a combined number. That's 12,847 breakfasts, 12,847 lunches. We've had 17 people per week to make that happen. And some of the feedback that we're getting from our families are saying, my children would not be eating lunch or breakfast if it were not for this service. They see the smiling faces of our staff and our buses, and they're very thankful. Also, the staff are thankful because they get to go out. They get to leave their homes and travel and see some of our families. So a special shout out to Mrs. Cole, the food service people, all of our kitchen staff, our educational aides, and our bus drivers. They're amazing. Mrs. Sickles for coordinating all of that.
Amen. All that.
Thank you. Business Advisory Council update, Mr. Knoll.
Yeah, just a real short update. The Business Advisory Council met on Tuesday, April 28th, virtually. Some of the things on their minutes and notes were discussion on how the COVID-19 affected K-12 education. There was some discussion from Kent State at Stark at the higher education level on how COVID was affecting their day-to-day operations. And there was also a strengthening Stark update as well. No June meeting, no July meeting for the Business Advisory. But thank you.
Old business. Is there any old business this evening? Hearing none. Under new business for school fees, is there a recommendation for a motion to approve the school fees for 2020-21 school year as presented and marked Exhibit EE?
So moved.
Mr. Nola, do you want to speak briefly to whether there's any increases? Is this the same? If you could give us an overview of that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, well, actually, Ms. Sutton kind of puts that together. If you don't mind, I'll have
I'm sorry, Mrs.
That's
Sutton.
okay. Just real quick.
Yep. The only difference really that you will see is the fees have actually been reduced again for technology fees and technology fund. The reduction for high school is now in line with all the other grades, grades 6 through 12. And then, so it's in line with the 25-25. Our fees remain the same in elementary and middle school at $30 flat. And then you'll notice that we made a change to credit recovery. We're no longer naming the platform because we're going to vote on the platform later tonight. So we're just calling it credit recovery fees. So that's it.
Thank you. Exchange student for 2020-2021. Mr. Null, I think I'll let you read this one due to this name that I will probably mispronounce.
This is an annual tradition, so I appreciate that.
We didn't vote on that.
Yeah, we didn't take a vote on
Oh,
We didn't
I'm
vote on
sorry.
that.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any discussion on the school fees? Hearing none, Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
And Mrs. Gabriel, can I go back to old business? We have a letter A in there. Are you guys all seeing that about public participation?
I do not.
Is that on your
Have that.
agenda?
It's on mine.
It was a
It's
late
on
entry.
mine.
It's not?
It is. I have it on mine.
Yeah, it was a late entry that I had talked about. I don't know if you didn't print that out. I can
I
read
did
that.
print it out. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All
It was letter A under old business.
right, you must have sent it very late today. Okay. Yes, we can go back to that. And is that the only addition you made late?
Well, it was that one and a couple of the other ones that I had mentioned to you.
All right, I'll pay attention then on that public
I think-
participation.
I think everything's in there. I think we're
Okay.
okay.
All right. Okay, back to old business under public participation. Is there a motion to recommend to suspend board policy to cancel public speaks for this meeting? I'm sorry, was there a motion and a second on this?
So move.
Is there a second?
Is this so this is just canceling public speaks for this meeting once
For
again?
this meeting only, and then you'll see later in the agenda, there's going to be a resolution for public speaks going forward. For this meeting only.
Right.
Okay, second.
Is there any discussion? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Okay, I'll pick it
Mr. No, I think we're ready for the exchange student now.
Well, let's do it. So I'd like to recommend a motion to approve the acceptance of Miguel Espelata Pontón from España as an exchange student for the 2020-21 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan.
Yeah.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Water resolution agreement, water service agreement resolution. Is there a motion to recommend for the approval and execution of the loan repayment agreement with the City of Alliance as presented and marked Exhibit FF?
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll do the second.
Discussion. Mr. Knoll or Mrs. Sutton or Katie, could you give us an overview of the resolution, please?
Yeah, I can speak to a little bit and the treasurer can kind of jump in. Basically, this is from our city water agreement to get city water here to the middle school and high school. As you remember, we had a nice project with some loan forgiveness. This is basically a document. This talks about how we are going to repay our portion of the loan to Alliance because Alliance serves as like the fiscal manager. They send money directly to the EPA. So that's what this resolution is in reference to.
And if you could go over the dollar amount of the resolution and the payment schedule, I guess would be helpful to know or to state.
I might need some help from the treasurer, but it was a $1.4 million project, 50% loan forgiveness. So it took it down to 700,000 or so. We are responsible for, I believe, 58% of that, which I
Correct.
believe,
The
Katie,
agreement,
remind me.
yeah, I have it right here. The agreement
please.
states Marlington is responsible for 58.6% of the unforgiven balance of the loan, which is equal to $438,000 $57.13.
Okay, thank you.
No interest. Interest shall not accrue. No interest shall accrue on the Marlington unforgiven balance of the loan, and the effective date of the agreement. As of the effective date of the agreement, Alliance has made 3 payments to the Ohio EPA, resulting in Marlington owing Alliance $21,902.85 of the balance on or before June 30th of 2020. And there's more to it, but that's kind of some of the key points.
And then the additional payments start then in July, and that's $7,300
I believe they're
semi-annually, right?
well, yes.
And that's from 2020 to 48.
Yeah, semi-annual payments, January 2nd, July 2nd, in the amount of $7,300.95.
And this amount had already been budgeted for, isn't that correct?
I have it in the forecast.
And one other question, it had stated in the contract that there may be additional fees. Since it didn't appear that this was complete yet as far as the agreement. Do we know how much that's going to be, or do you have like a ballpark figure as far as the additional fees that will be assessed?
Additional, Joe, do you know anything about additional fees?
Are you talking about usage, Carolyn?
No, I thought there said in this that there would be once all the bills or all the information's in, there would be additional cost.
I don't think it's additional cost, Ms. Gabrick. I think it's more just kind of even it up between Alliance and Marlington. There were some funds out there that the EPA kind of hasn't got divvied out yet. And I think the contract just kind of speaks to it once everything kind of settles down and the payments kind of start coming forward. If there's some differentiation between us and Alliance, we're just kind of to work mutually together to make sure we work that out.
Okay, but you're not anticipating that to be a large amount, is that correct?
No, no.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Katie, please call the roll.
Oh, hang on one second. There's likely no other cost. The EPA has just not closed out the project yet.
Correct.
This just in information from a higher power. All right, sorry. You ready for your roll call?
When you're ready.
Okay, Mrs. Gabrick.
Yes.
Mrs. Mrs. Humphrey,
Yeah.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Curriculum, is there a motion to approve the online learning platform contract with Acellus as presented and marked Exhibit GG?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Under discussion, is Mrs. Sutton, is this your your agreement that you could explain a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I had to unmute myself. Sorry about that. So what we're doing is entering into this agreement with Acellus that will provide all of our online learning options for students in seclusion. So when we talk about our Duke Digital Academy, credit recovery, and any elective courses, or what we call singlet courses that students may be interested in taking that we do not have faculty for, or they cannot fit into their regular schedule, this would cover this. This online resource would cover those courses.
This is a 1-year contract, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And it's run through Spark, run through our A site. And this actually replaces 3 different options that we were using prior to this: Florida Virtual, Fuel Ed, and Play-Doh. So now we can get the expansion of those resources with one vendor.
They're pretty similar in the price of 3 separate services.
It's actually less expensive.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the Apple buyback purchase service contract with Second Life Mac as presented and marked Exhibit HH?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mrs. Sutton, is this something you handled as well?
Yes, ma'am.
If you could give us a brief overview of this, I would appreciate it.
Sure. So we solicited, Ben really was the lead in contacting our vendors. We talked about it every day, though, as he participated in those conversations, talking about all of the details. But we solicited quotes from 3 different vendors. Second Life Mac came in as the best buy. They have the best floor pricing, the best minimum pricing, and also they are the only one of the 3 vendors that are offering no touch collection. So once we can get this approved, we will get on their schedule and they will be on site to collect the devices from our students, and our staff should not have to touch them. which now is a really good, that was very appealing to us, in addition to the pricing.
So what is the anticipated price that you expect to receive in this buyback?
Well, the floor, we will absolutely get the minimum, no matter what, but the varying from there is based on the condition of the devices that we sell back to them. They
Right.
grade them A to F. So we will get a minimum price that's established in the quote, but we could get more than that based on the condition of the devices.
So am I reading this right, that the minimum we would receive would be 174,000, the maximum would be 249? Is that what
Yes.
the contract's saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And those are all the devices that we are replaced with the purchase that we made the previous month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there further discussion or questions on this? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the amended legal counsel and services resolution as presented and marked Exhibit II?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
What is the difference here in this?
Pardon me?
What is the difference in this resolution?
The difference
Amended.
in this is the paragraph with Lane Alton. Last month, we did not have their engagement letter, and Katie did receive that on May 14th. That is attached to your agenda. And the date is entered in the agreement, and it just says that that copy of that is attached to the exhibit.
Okay.
Is there any further questions? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Mr. No, I'm not sure that I have this exhibit. If you want to, can you do the Marble Roofing contract resolution? I'm not sure that I have that exhibit.
We don't have any document from the Marlboro Roofing contract yet. Is that what you're referring to, letter G?
I think she's,
Yes.
oh, are you referring to the email we got with the different bids that we have A, B, and C?
No, I gave you that just as some reference for the meeting, but we don't have an official contract yet from them as an exhibit.
Okay.
Once we get it, that's just a placeholder. Once we get that, Mrs. Packey will attach it with exhibit JJ.
Okay, thank you. Then is there a motion to approve the Boak and Son Roofing for the Marlboro Roofing contract as presented and marked exhibit JJ, which we will be receiving, I guess?
Right.
Are we gonna have to vote on this again, Joe?
No. This vote tonight will give us the authority to go ahead and move forward with that roofing company for the project.
But even though we don't have the contract, we have firm numbers on the abatement and the cost. I
Yeah.
guess it's gonna be the,
Let's get a motion and second on the floor, and then we can discuss it and amend it if necessary.
sure,
Is there a motion?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. You can continue with your discussion.
Sorry about that. So I guess that's what I was asking, Joe, is that what we're looking at? We have, 3 different companies that did the job.
Correct.
And
And Boak and Son came in. Now remember, they came in a little bit later than our meeting this morning, but that was permitted because the contractor, gave everybody another chance to kind of requote the body of work. So Boak and Son came in, and I gave you guys some of those numbers, but just to let you know, the good news for Marlington, let's talk about that first. If you remember, we had projected $80-some thousand worth of abatement for that roof. They are telling us it's going to be $23,000. So for Marlington, there's like a $60,000 savings there for that abatement piece. The bad news for PlugSmart is the quote came in $22,000 over, but that's PlugSmart's problem. I mean, just to be honest with you,
yeah.
that's not Marlington's problem, but that was the best quote for the roof project itself.
Okay.
I got that information. I don't even remember when I sent it to you, but I only had time to make one call, and I talked to a guy over at Stark State actually, and he had nothing but positive comments and responses to the body of work that contractor has done for them. No reservation. I asked him about communication, that type of thing, and was very well spoken about the company. So
Was that someone in the administration or maintenance or?
well, he was like the grounds and maintenance director there at Stark State.
So Joe, am I reading this right? The 3 bids that came in were $22,000, $61,000, and $126,000 over the
That's
actual.
correct. That's correct. Yeah, and I talked to Will about that, and basically what he is saying is because of how fast we want to get this project up and it's coming in a little bit over cost. And that just must be what's going on right now in the roofing world. A lot of people have jobs already and they've got their schedule. So this is a tough one to squeeze in. That's what he commented about this morning. But like I said, that's not our problem. That's PlugSmart's problem, just full disclosure. But anyway, they recommended, PlugSmart recommended Boak and Son as well. So
Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Humphrey,
No,
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
COVID-19 resolution. Is there a motion to approve the resolution to responsibly conduct board meetings to prevent the spread of COVID-19 as presented in marked Exhibit KK?
So moved.
Second.
I will read, I'll read this resolution. Resolution to responsibly conduct board meetings to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Whereas the state of Ohio begins the process of responsibly reopening to prevent the spread of COVID-19, so does the Marlington Local School District Board of Education, or the board. Whereas the notice requirements of House Bill 197, Revised Code 121.22, and applicable laws were complied with for this regular board meeting of May 21st, 2020. Whereas all formal action of the board concerning and relating to the adoption of the instant resolution were taken in an open meeting of the board, and all deliberations of the board that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public and in compliance with the law. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to House Bill 197, Revised Code 121.22, and applicable laws, the board shall resume conducting regular board meetings on the first and third Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. These regular meetings are both an essential business and operation and essential government function of the board. During the period of emergency declared by Executive Order 2020-01D issued on March 9th, but not beyond December 1st, 2020. The board shall live stream each regular meeting on the Marlington Technology Department YouTube channel. Shall strictly enforce social distancing guidelines, limit attendance to only 10 individuals at one time, which will include the superintendent, treasurer, board members, as they are necessary for the essential business and operation and essential government function of the board pursuant to House Bill 197. The superintendent, treasurer, and board members may participate via virtual platform. Now be it further resolved that pursuant to House Bill 197, Board Bylaw 155, and all applicable laws, the board shall resume the following board committees with the following appointments to the same. Policy Committee, Carolyn Giebrick and Josh Hagan. Curriculum, Karen Humphreys and Danielle Stevens. Finance, Carolyn Giebrick and Scott Mason. Building and Grounds, Josh Hagan and Danielle Stevens. And Extracurricular, Karen Humphreys and Scott Mason. These board committees are both an essential business and operation and essential government function of the board during the period of the emergency declared by the Executive Order 2020-01D issued on March 9th, but not beyond December 1st. And this goes on with the same guidelines as above, so I won't read those again. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to House Bill 197, Board Bylaw 161.9, and applicable laws, the board shall resume public participation at regular board meetings commencing the first regular board meeting in June 2020 under the following conditions during the period of the emergency declared by the Executive Order 2020-01D issued on March 9th, but not beyond December 1st, 2020. Persons wishing to present information or items to the board shall submit a written statement along with their names and directory information in a Word format to the treasurer on or before 3 p.m. on Friday before the regular meeting of the board. The treasurer should then submit such timely written statements to each board member before the next regular meeting of the board. At the next regular meeting of the board, the treasurer shall identify the name of the person who submitted the written statement, and such statement shall be entered into the minutes, but not read aloud at the regular board meeting. There shall be no public participation at the special board meeting. Is there any discussion on the resolution?
Regarding the committee assignments, I guess kind of puzzled as to why Dr. and a professor wouldn't be on the curriculum committee. That just seems like common sense to me.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up and I didn't understand what you asked me.
Dr. Mason is not on the curriculum committee, which doesn't make sense. As a professor, he's someone that you would, I know that as a member of the curriculum committee already in discussions, he had really valuable input. I know that Carol appreciated and had some really good insight to things, so that doesn't make sense that he wouldn't be on the curriculum committee.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, are you going to answer that? Why that wouldn't be? I mean,
I
that
mean,
doesn't
if you
make sense.
disagree with the appointments, I mean, we will be voting on the motion. If you disagree with the appointments, you may vote yes or no. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, these are the appointments that are listed, and
Who made the appointment?
the president is entitled to make the appointment of the.
But why wouldn't you go with the strength of the person that you're appointing? That makes no sense. Again. Why would you not put Dr. Mason on curriculum? Oh, okay, great.
Is there any other discussion? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphrey,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Under the treasurer's agenda, is there a motion to approve the minutes recommended by the treasurer of the following meeting, regular meeting, April 16th, 2020, and special meeting, May 11th, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes. I am not voting yes to approve these minutes. And nothing to do with Katie. She does a great job taking the minutes. But for April 16th, I will not be voting yes because Mr. Knoll stated his reason for placing the district lines for elementary school attendance was in order to avoid hiring additional staff, and that the lines were the same as the prior year. And that makes sense to me, save money. The district leadership team compact was approved by the board majority, but it's not followed. So I'm not quite sure why that was even put out there.
Was that on?
Yes, that was approved by the board majority on April 16th.
But it's
Mrs.
what you're
Pardon?
saying. What you mean that Joe made the statements that's in the.
He did.
And what I'm
I
saying.
read the minutes.
You're gonna. So you're saying you're not gonna vote for the minutes because you disagree with what happened at the meeting, not reflective.
Correct.
Of actually being or not.
Correct.
Okay.
Mrs. Gabrick's reason for wanting to hire an additional attorney was because he provides a valuable service by helping everyone understand what is going on. But we are not in need of yet another cog in the wheel, and an expensive one at that. And Mr. Markling has only increased paperwork, and it seems to me that he thinks he's in charge. The board majority's approval of the Plug Smart contract for Marlboro repairs, as well as Plug Smart letters of intent for both Washington and Lexington buildings, when it's clear that we still do not fully know the financial future of our district. The May meeting, I will not be voting yes because changing the district lines caused building attendance numbers to be made even more uneven, with Lexington now having 331 assigned there, Washington 247, and Marlboro 182. Mr. Knoll has concern that first, second, and fifth grade numbers may cause additional staff to have to be hired. Parents' voices of concern are being ignored. I read an email from the parent and there was no comment from anyone about it. Mr. Knoll again expressed concern that the district line change will result in the need to hire more staff, and that was why he proposed a previous district line. And again, hiring Attorney Markling is an added expense, no matter how the decision is spun or discussed. There was no issue with the administration and attorneys they used for years, and therefore the added expense is a waste of taxpayer dollars. I continue to be concerned that even after asking twice in writing, once via email and once via certified letter, Attorney Markling has yet to submit a bill to Marlington. In the interest of transparency, we should be receiving monthly bills for his services in order to invest the time that he's expending and to see what he is doing. For those reasons, I won't be voting yes.
For the sake, I'm going to respond to one of your concerns.
Okay.
As far as the enrollment at the schools, What do you think the proper number for students in school buildings would be?
You were breaking up, sorry.
I'm just saying what is to be in each one of those schools to be the best number in your mind?
Well, I know they were more even along the lines that Mr. Knoll, I mean, it's not going to be apples to apples, apparently, with the way.
The reason I say is those buildings are the same size. The ones, I believe 54,000 square feet, which is Lexington, which is the building which now has the uneven amount more number of kids in it, versus Washington, which is 36,000 square feet. And, you know, if you want to get into the buildings being even, if you look at the enrollment numbers after we move the lines back, you divide the enrollment numbers by the square foot of the building, we actually have them more balanced out with the current setup with the lines moved back. And considering we're going to have possible social distancing requirements, even if they're not requirements, I'm sure there's going to be guides that want more distance between the kids. And even if the government isn't making us do it, I'm sure parents will feel safer knowing that we have space to space the kids out within the buildings. Therefore, I mean, the argument that they're not balanced out in the schools doesn't hold when the school buildings are so different in size. The fact that, you know, we have more at Lexington actually makes a lot of sense. And the square footage of the buildings per kid right now is, I believe it's between 145 and 138 between the two schools. Before it was 164 and 120. So you had a higher discrepancy. So the one school you'd be better, you know, able to social distance, and the other one, Washington, would be overcrowded compared to Lexington. So with the actual enrollment, after we move the lines back, we are better suited to handle social distancing in those buildings.
That's good information, actually. I still am concerned that that's going to cause more dollars, you know, so overall, and the social
safety of the kids than dollars, a little amount of dollars. I mean, safety of the kids should be paramount.
That's true. I agree with that.
The small amount of dollars difference that we're talking, if we have to hire one or two teachers versus having our district be able to not, if we're possible, we can avoid blended learning as much as these other schools that are already, you know, capped at the capacity of the school buildings. We have space in our buildings so that we're better able to deal with it than other districts, especially due to the fact that we're reopening Marlboro Elementary. So that's something that a lot of people would take into consideration. It was actually something that we didn't plan for. We voted to reopen Marlboro Elementary, but it's actually a benefit that our district has over other districts in dealing with this COVID-19 situation. And I'm sure a lot of parents aren't looking forward with blended learning, having their kids at school 2 days and then home 2 days. And, you know, a lot of districts might have to do that. We don't know what the future is, but if that turns out to be the case and there's social distancing requirements in the classrooms or even outside the classrooms where we make other spaces into learning environments, we're a lot better capable to do that. And that may equate to parents not having to stay home with their kids 2 or 3 days a week, and they're able to go to work and not have to find somebody to watch their kids, which usually ends up being the grandparents. So that in and of itself makes this, you know, a better situation and less risky for families.
It's not a better situation if we can't handle it financially, though. So I agree. We have things that are going to unfold, and we have to look into that. But that is overall, it's still developing. And as I said, appreciate that information. Absolutely, the safety of the students is the number one thing. And hopefully the COVID things will turn out better than we think they will, but we don't know what that's going to look like. And that's it.
Okay. Well, financial cost benefit for doing outweighs going the other route, which we had Marlboro closed. I'm sure the actual cost to the district and families would not outweigh the benefit. And there's other things that are less important than, you know, the safety of the kids with this virus right now. So just want to make that clear.
Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 4-1.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation on the financial reports and overview of receipts and expenditures for the period ending April 30th, 2020, as presented and marked as Exhibit LL and Exhibit MM?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Berger, could you go over your reports, please?
Sure. These are the normal reports that you guys are used to receiving. The bank reconciliation begins with last month's FinSum financial summary balance, factors in all investments, this currently of about 7.3 million, and when factoring in adjustments arrives at 0. FinSum financial summary is summarizing all fund activity. The only notable item on this report, as in prior months, is food service, which I've shared before, is struggling this year and will likely require a fund transfer at year end. And check pay is a summary of all checks this month. It's a pretty standard month. I mean, there's not really anything specific that stands out to me.
Katie, on the food service, could you address how it's been impacted the last 3 months? Has that saved any money, or how has that been affecting it?
Well, everything's kind of up in the air right now with the current epidemic situation. And additionally, there's just been a downward trend in cash balance as far as food service goes this year since I've started here. And so we are identifying those trends and looking at ways to reduce expenditures in that fund going forward so that the trend doesn't continue.
And as far as the last 3 months specifically, did we continue to receive funding, and were expenses up or down in the food service?
We have been continuing to apply for reimbursements through the food service program. And as far as I can see, the negative trend seems to be remaining pretty flat. It doesn't seem to be getting worse, but I'm not going to know until this all lands. Because like I said, this is new territory with the pandemic right now. Everything is different. It's not the same.
And in your fin summary on several of the accounts that have negative balances,
Are you speaking to the federal fund?
Right. On all those, they'll be reconciled out then just by the end of the fiscal year. Is that correct?
Those were normal funds that are spent first and then reimbursed later. So that's normal activity for those funds.
Is there any further questions? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan. Oh, you're muted.
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Humphries. You're muted as well.
Yes.
Dr. Mason
Yes.
and Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation to approve the amended appropriations as presented and marked Exhibit NN?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any
Okay.
discussion?
Sure, I
Okay.
can go through this really quickly. This amendment represents the E-rate resolution that was approved at the last board meeting. Some building repairs that have come across my desk with regard to the elementary. Joe might even be able to speak to that a little bit more in depth. The Plug Smart resolution and additional money is allocated to Fund 516.
Would you say the last one was just a grant allocation?
Yes.
And then the E-rate resolution, why was I thinking that was 98,000?
It was
Are we getting
698 somewhere in, yeah. It was the resolution approved last meeting.
I thought that was under 100,000 though.
Correct. But that, hold on, let me grab so I'm looking at the same thing you're looking at.
On that exhibit, and the revision's 123.
Yes, because that includes the building repairs too that I was talking about that have recently come across my desk.
The building repairs to
Elementary
do
building.
that E-rate.
Yeah, there have been some building repairs come across my desk. There were, I believe, the majority of them are Marlboro. There was some ceiling and flooring. And Joe, do you have any more detail you can offer on this?
Yeah, in my board update, remember I showed you the roof at Lexington, that some of those tiles had collapsed, so we needed to get asbestos people in there. That was a part of that. And then we have at Marlboro, if you remember one of the reports that we had, we needed to fix that door down in the basement area. Those are the two that are off the top of my head that I can remember, Katie.
Does
I
this
have it in my hand.
Probably the big.
I have it. The basement floor, I'm sorry, the basement floor drain at Marlboro was $5,977. The floor abatement for 2 classrooms was $5,330. The replacement of exterior basement door was $3,950 for a total of $15,257. You were waiting on quotes for flooring and carpet. This is all at Marlboro. And the ceiling tiles were $6,000. And you're waiting for a vacuum cleaner, all these estimates: vacuum cleaners, carpet scrubber, stripping machine, floor scrubber, pickup machine, and custodial carts and miscellaneous cleaning supplies. So far, $1,257 at Marlboro. And then you had, I'm sorry. And then for the ceiling at Lexington, $15,820 is the estimate.
Right.
So that's, yeah.
On the ceiling tile for Marlboro, since those were some of those were moved over from the middle school, was that had Tremco reimbursed us for any of the ceiling tiles that were damaged during the work that they had done, and we had those roof leaks? Was that part of any of the settlement, or how'd that work?
Yeah, it was actually. Yeah, they reimbursed us for those and the work, time and labor to put them up.
Okay, and so do we have any idea how much that would have been, or has that been too long ago that we?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't remember what that settlement
But that
was.
money has been received and deposited into the accounts.
Yeah, that was done through a change order on the project.
Okay.
So just to clarify, a large portion of, if not the majority of the bad ceiling tiles at Marlboro were actually, for my understanding, moved. They were damaged tiles that were moved from the middle school to Marlboro, and they took good tiles from Marlboro to use at the middle school for the tiles that were damaged. Is that correct?
Or anywhere else that we needed them. Yeah. So if we had bad tiles at any of the other buildings, we took the ones out of Marlboro and put them to help, fix the issues we had here.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify that the cost of those tiles would have been to offset those other tiles that were taken from Marlboro too. Those weren't just additional costs from Marlboro Elementary. So
Right. Not all of them. I mean, when we did our walkthrough, we saw that there were some leaks at Marlboro specifically, as you remember, but not all of them. No.
Yeah. As far as the equipment and stuff for cleaning, what happened to the equipment that we had in there a year ago? Is it obsolete, or was it moved out of there to another?
Well, some of it was moved out. to the other buildings, and we'll come back if we can. I think Mr. Inserpi just identified some specifics, some equipment that just needs to come up with, probably out of commission type material
Okay.
in that list. Yeah.
Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens. Is that a yes, Mrs. Steve?
Muted.
Yeah.
Almost got everybody so far.
Yes, sorry.
Infamous mute button.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the 5-year forecast as presented and marked Exhibit 00?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Katie, do you want to do a presentation on this before we ask questions?
Sure. Let me give this a shot here.
Okay, we have your PowerPoint.
All right. Let me see if I can get this into slideshow mode here so it shows up a little better.
If you just hit play from start, I think the top one. There you go.
Okay. There we go. All right. We'll just start with understanding the 5-year forecast. The 5-year forecast is a living document that is a best estimate with information that we know at a given time, given point in time, based off of historical trends known facts. This estimate will change as decisions are made or funding changes. The forecast gives the board and administration a guideline to use to help make financially sound decisions and change the current spending trajectory of the district. The forecast provides a method for the Department of Education and Auditor of State to identify school districts with potential financial problems. Overall revenue increased this year with the first payments from Nexus. It's projected to drop in fiscal year 2021 due to state deficit and reductions, and return to normal levels pending that no additional changes occur with the pandemic. The district has a renewal levy expiring with collections ending in calendar year 2023. And these charts just kind of give you an overview of what we have going on with our revenue in the district. So you can just kind of take a look there. With regard to taxes, property tax collections are projected to decrease slightly due to economic conditions in fiscal year 2021. The district's public utility revenue has historically been reported on line 1.010 and has been brought down to line 1.020 where it belongs. That's why the historical data on the charts may appear slightly distorted when comparing the current and projected revenues. Line 1.020 contains the Nexus funds at the lowest appealed value until settlement occurs. Nexus is projected to have a 2.5% valuation decreases in years going forward. Line 1.050 is the state reimbursements for homestead and rollback reductions. Line 1.035 relates to state foundation funding that has no restrictions. In fiscal year 2020, the governor cut $408,237 due to COVID-19. It is not yet known what the cuts will be for fiscal year 2021. However, the governor has stated there will be budget shortfalls. Additionally, whoa, sorry, I had an echo there. Additionally, it has been stated that the deficit in 2021 could be double the rainy day fund. The in webcasts involving professionals from Ohio Department of Education, OASBO, OSBA, and treasurers throughout the state and well-known forecasting companies have given the conclusion that though nobody really knows where this is going to land, the middle ground and assumption for revenue reduction appears to be 10% for fiscal year 2021. Additionally, it is best to err on the side of caution rather than underproject and lose the ability for proper planning. Other operating revenues are items such as tuition, fees, interest, etc. Other than the Terry's Tire Town settlement, this is not projected to change very much. This slide just kind of gives an overview of expenditures. Overall expenditures are expected to increase over the forecasted period. Much of this is due to increased staffing and a change in projected spending patterns for purchase services. Salaries and benefits are expected to increase due to increased staffing levels, negotiated agreements, and expenditures related to wellness funds that are brought back into the forecast after fiscal year 2021. Due to the volatility of health insurance claims and the district continues to project 7% per premium increase, 2 premium holidays in fiscal year 2021, and 1 holiday for the remainder of the forecasted period. One holiday annually for the remainder of the forecasted period. These 2 lines have a large impact on the budget as they account for around 70% of the total budget. Purchase services are projected to land around $4.4 million for the fiscal year 2020 and are projected out according to historical trends. Wellness funds are not guaranteed after fiscal year 2021, and that causes additional increase in fiscal year 2022 for this line. Purchase services equate to 18% of the district's budget. And here you can see the trend increases from historical 2017, there was a 15% increase. 2018, there was a 10.87% increase. 2019, it's a 5% increase, which is why we continue to show increases going forward. And this 2022, you can see a larger increase due to the wellness funds coming back in that I previously spoke about. Supplies account for instructional materials, textbooks, fuel, tires, etc., and are about 3.5% of the budget. And capital outlay is specific to building improvements, equipment, and technology. Currently, capital outlay accounts for about 1% of the budget. The district is slated to receive $394,225 in CARES funding, which has been utilized on this line to reduce technology-related expenditures in fiscal year 2020 and 2021. Other financing sources is primarily used for the transfer of funds for a permanent improvement, nexus revenue transfers, and food service deficit. As previously stated in prior meetings, the food service fund is likely to experience a deficit, and therefore administration is working on plans to reduce spending going forward. Once we are closer to the final numbers, I will likely be bringing forward a transfer to take care of the deficit in this fund in June. So the question on everyone's mind is, why is the May forecast so different from November? The significant factors are as follows. Unrestricted state grants. This year, $408,237 and 10% in fiscal year 2021. Additionally, there were reductions in preschool and casino funding on our foundation funding reports, both of which are based on enrollment and projected out through the forecast. First, here. Oh wait, I need to go back. There we go. Personnel. Estimated district staffing needs equate to 1.1 million over 5 years. This number will change as decisions are made. Benefits. Estimated district staffing equates to approximately 600,000 over 5 years. This number will change as well as staffing decisions are made. On a side note, this line is partially offset by the addition of one premium holiday to help accommodate for historical trends while continuing to be mindful of the volatile nature of health insurance claims. Purchase services. Finally, the difference in spending trajectory for purchase services caused a significant deviation of about $4 million over the course of 5 years. The May forecast takes the current projected spend for fiscal year 2020 and based on historical trends, increases from that benchmark. It is important to keep in mind that trends change, the projections will as well. Or that as trends change, the projections will as well. For example, reducing contract obligations in 2021 by $200,000 will reduce the trend and bring the spending path down by that amount annually, thereby saving $800,000 over the remaining 4 years of the forecast. Purchase services can be difficult to control due to a number of uncontrollable items within the line, such as open enrollment out, for example. All of this is the basis for doing a forecast, so the board and administration have an idea of where the district spending trends are heading and how they can make corrections to change the path. Line 6.010 gives a sense of the district's fiscal health. A positive number indicates that the district is spending less than its revenue, and a negative number suggests the opposite. At that point, discussions among the board and administration should take place on how to handle the overspend so that the district is not cutting into its tax carryover each year. When a district is overspending, timing is very important. The longer you take to make corrections, the more difficult it is to right the ship. For example, if the district is projected to overspend by $704,000 this year and $3.3 million next year, if nothing is corrected, then the following year the district will have to come up with $4,007,998 instead of just $3.3 million. Please note this example is just for illustration purposes. With 1 month left in the school year, it would be nearly impossible to trim $700,000 from this year's budget. With no intervention, the district is projected to have a negative cash balance by year 2022 in the general fund. The district will likely receive notification from the Ohio Department of Education to put together a recovery plan to eliminate the deficit. In all fairness, it is likely that many districts will fall into this situation right now due to the state budget cuts. However, it is important that we plan ahead because we do not know what is going to happen with the global crisis. With respect to the aforementioned data, the following recommendations should be considered. The district should not fill any newly opened positions that are not absolutely necessary for continued operations. The district should consider reducing current staff, programming, and class sizes. The board should consider additional tax levy and to offset the deficit. The board should consider utilization of Nexus funds to offset the deficit as needed. or the board could use any combination of these options. And just some final comments. COVID-19 will have lasting effects on the district's revenue. At this time, we are not in a position to accurately predict how long the pandemic will last or its effects on our state and local economy. My recommendation is to look into intermittent forecasting if necessary due to the rapidly changing financial environment. The uncertainty surrounding the state's decisions in the next fiscal year will be greatly influenced on the state of the economy, and the length of this pandemic. And that is all I have.
Katie, do you have the full 5-year forecast you could put up on the screen while we're talking about it?
Sure,
For reference?
the big long document. Give me 1 second to figure out how to turn this back off. And just give me a second. Oh, here we go. I got it. All right, and let me share my screen again.
We see you, Ms. Berger. You're good.
Okay. All right. There you
Can you put that on page 22, I believe it is? That would have the full forecast?
Oh, come on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
We'll just start off. Why in previous forecasts, they had included the last 3 current fiscal years. Is there any reason why those were dropped off on this particular forecast?
That's just how this document was set up for the output. I can send you whatever data you need.
Okay. Well, I guess you could just hold it up to the previous forecast too if you needed those numbers.
Yeah, because the
You had put that
the
together. You don't have that available to post up, Katie?
the prior years.
You had sent me a copy of one today where you had put it in the format where it had the 3 prior years and then the current year.
Hang on. I think
Sorry. We're being very demanding tonight.
It's okay. No big deal. Let's see here.
Tonight.
Yep, I believe that's it right there.
Thank you. Katie, I do appreciate your work on preparing the 5-year forecast and taking the time to answer many of my questions and sending me additional information. I have spent a significant amount of time going over the forecast and looking over your numbers. And Katie, I'm just asking you to help me understand the nearly $9 million loss that occurred from the November 2019 forecast and now, just 6 months later, before I can approve this. We need to help the folks that are listening to the meeting to understand it as well. Katie, you previously mentioned that the huge discrepancy is not related to the COVID-19, or since November is not related to the COVID-19, because this year in 2020, we only had a net $12,000 loss approximately. It's not related to the reopening of Marlboro building that was just closed for only 1 year. It's not related to outside legal expenses or employee pay raises, bus purchases, or technology. And the board does stand behind all the 2020 expenditures that we've approved. Yet despite this, we still have a $9 million variance since November. Karen, Scott, and I all approved the 5-year forecast in November that had a net negative fund balance of $2 million. And now, all things being equal, you're now asking for approval of an $11 million shortfall at the end of the 5-year forecast. And we just need to understand more details. I know you gave us some generalities, but if you could dive into the details, I think we need to look at what has happened here.
That's completely understandable. Give me 1 second. I think I have a better report that might help. Hang on. Where is it? Right here. Okay. I think I need to try and share my screen again. I think I lost you guys.
Yeah, we don't see anything right now. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, you're back on now.
Where's my document? Right here. Okay. So based on some questions that you had earlier, I prepared this document for you. And so this identifies the large deviation. Well, it identifies all the deviations over the 5-year period. And it all adds up to the differences in the two forecasts, because here are the balances and the ending balances in the two forecasts. So here are your deviations right here. And so, and a lot of this is what I've already told you.
If you could just give us another recap. This is a pretty large number, and going over it again, I think would be very helpful for us as well as the people listening.
Sure, and it's a lot to digest. So with regard to property taxes, there's a lot in this line with regard, you get your nexus money and all that moving around, but we know that that's a net zero because the money comes in and then it goes back out on the bottom line down here. That's why I made them both purple. But there are some, as I said in my PowerPoint presentation, reduced collection rates due to the epidemic, or the pandemic, because we want to be cognizant that the collection rates very well may go down. So we want to account for that. So there is money in here that we need to be, that would be part of that. And then this number here is the 10% along with the 408,000. And then you have drops in preschool revenue and casino funding. And that's also brought out through the 5 years of the forecast, and it all adds up. It's cumulative. So that's where you get, that's another big chunk right there. And then you have, as I spoke in my PowerPoint, the increased personnel costs right here. And then the biggest item is the deviations in personnel, which is right here. And it's simply just a change in trajectory of what was forecasted in November to now. And like I said, it all balances to the November to May forecast.
Could you help me understand the adjustment that you referenced where you were moving the public utility, which I believe was the Nexus money, from 1.01 to 1.02?
Oh, sure. That's an easy one. That's literally in prior years, the public utility money was being recorded under real estate 1.010, where it actually belongs on 1.020. So that's where you're going to, and I said that in my PowerPoint as well. It's just going to make things look a little goofy when you're looking at historical trends versus current trends. Because you're used to seeing all that money reported on line 1.010. Well, now we're splitting it out and putting it in the appropriate buckets.
Now,
Okay,
the only,
that's what
that's the Nexus money, correct?
Nexus money, and also the district had some public utility money before then too, but it was all being reported on line 1.010.
But the only forecast the Nexus money was on would have been the November 2019 one, correct?
Yeah, it was included on the November forecast.
On that, it was on line 1.020.
Yes, the Nexus money was on the November forecast, and it was only Nexus on line 1.020. But the district prior to Nexus had public utility money, but it was being reported on 1.010.
All right, I got it. All together.
Yes, and it belonged on 1.020. It's really, that is really simply a correction in lines.
Okay.
It has no material value. It's just literally taking money and moving it to the correct line item.
So how much did we have in public utilities that you moved out? If you can give us a line, a year by year.
840,000 minus the 15, whatever's on that line. The difference would be that.
840,000. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'll give you an estimate because I don't have the actuals right now with me, but just to give you an idea, I'll do it on my phone. And it's just for this fiscal year. So yeah, right around $650,000.
You're saying for 2019 or 2020?
2020.
2020?
Yes, so about $650,000.
So it's
That's-
basically the difference of that line in line 5.010 then, because 5.010 is going to reflect the Nexus money. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So
Yes.
the
Now
difference of those two is what was moved out of the general property tax 1.010 and put in with the Nexus money on 1.020.
now you've got it. Yep.
So you took out 650 and then just another arbitrary 160 or 115,000 more for, what was the additional 115,000 for?
What were we talking about? 115,000. I'm not following.
If you look at the 2020 amount versus what it was forecasted before, just trying to get from point A to point B,
Which line?
That's
on
probably
1.01.
that's all based on collection value. Is I mean those things are kind of movable. So, and the amount that's literally on 2020 is it's based off the settlement we received. So it's an actual. I mean, you could call it an actual value because I adjusted it based on the settlement we received.
So the money going out for Nexus, you're just reporting the amount that impacts the 5-year forecast, or do you have the PI money in that as well?
No, PI belongs in 003. So
The
that's why-
PI does, the permanent
Yes.
improvement does, but the Nexus money that's allocable to that.
Right. And I think if you remember correctly, we were saying in an earlier meeting that the Nexus money was equating to somewhere around 875,000 for this fiscal year. Well, the deviation would be the money allocated to Fund 003 or PI.
Okay. And then where are we with the real estate tax? Since it was billed late this year and it has slowed down as far as, the cash flow slowed down.
We just received our that's what I was just telling you. We just received our remember I was telling you the billing was late and it was driving me crazy because I
Yes.
wanted the settlement, but like that's common practice to get your settlement before the forecast is complete so you can wrap up your numbers. Well, I literally just received it on Friday. And so yeah, I mean all that's in. We've got it.
So all the money's in,
Mhm.
and that's the maximum that will be collected this year. There's no additional money that would come in for real estate tax.
Yeah, the 2020 numbers are solid.
And how much is owed on the delinquencies that's not booked here?
I don't have that information on me, but I can get it for you.
Do you have a ballpark figure you could give us?
I don't even have a ballpark figure. That's not something I store in my brain.
Is it up or down?
I don't, like I said, that's not something that I was paying attention to when I got that settlement on Friday and was keying it in late at night trying to get this thing wrapped up for you guys on time.
You're in your office. You can't look that up?
No, I'd have to be. I'll get it for you.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. I guess the concern I have is that you had mentioned because of our high turnover of treasurers, our prior 5-year forecasts could possibly be misrepresented or inaccurate. And it's very concerning to me that we have been operating on those. And if this is what you're saying is correct, and we thought for at least, the 15 years I've been on the board, that we were in a good financial position for all these years, and now you have us saying we're going immediately into fiscal caution. This is a little alarming. How can we have such a drastic change? It just
Well, you also have to consider, like I said in my PowerPoint, all the factors that are going on. I mean, we just took a 10% reduction in fiscal year 2021 in our foundation pet. I mean, it's not just one line. There are a lot of factors going on here. And so And on top of that, we don't know what is going to happen. A lot could change. It may not end up being 10%, could be 5%, could be 15%. They could take reductions in 2020. We don't know. And so, to be honest with you, that's another reason I said a lot of other districts are probably in the same boat because of the funding cuts.
I mean,
A
you
lot of
mentioned,
other
go ahead.
a lot of other districts are in the same boat, but they're not spending money on unnecessary things. That's the key too. So you add to the concern and the caution that we're supposed to be taking. Yes, we knew that we were going to have to tighten the belt and that type of thing because of, I mean, funding is broken for public education. That's just a fact. And there's so many issues going on, but then you have all these other factors, as Katie states. And then talking about increased staffing, our purchase services going up, the possible at least 10% from state funding being cut. And then in addition to that, we're digging the hole even deeper by spending money for things we don't need, like a building and an attorney. And those are the things that don't make sense. You can't do anything about some of these things. I mean, we don't have control, but we do have control over making some of these decisions. And so the smart thing is I wrote the word caution because that's what she was talking about, taking a caution. And that's her job to tell us those things and give us a picture. So we can talk about all the varying factors and look at the differences that we have, but again, I just operate on common sense. That we need to just slow down and stop making expenditures or pay for things that are not necessary.
But just with all due respect, Mrs. Humphreys, when we're looking at what's going to be necessary, I mean, clearly with how things are going in the pandemic that we're living in, we have to not have kids stacked up on each other. So, I mean, as a parent, and I believe other parents have shared the same frustration of doing granted, it's great doing what we're doing to make these kids able to benefit from the schooling at such a, pandemic. But if we look at doing the 2 a day and all of that, then parents are going to be losing out on money, which then impedes our children as well. So, I mean, if you're looking at it in that retrospect, it makes sense to repair what we need for all 3 buildings. We have to make the repairs anyways. I mean, we have to protect the investment that we have for the school buildings. And then isn't the safety of our students the utmost concern anyway? So, I mean, we can dance around this all night, but at the same time, doing what's best for the students is why we're serving on the board, and doing what's best is keeping those kids safe and keeping them safe. Like Josh had made the point of not having them all stacked up into 2 buildings, or the previous board wanted to make a risky investment and have a consolidated elementary school. So I'm not sure how we would have utilized that during the pandemic and not had our kids be on top of each other and social distancing as well. So, I mean, we have to also err in caution on that. We're already making the improvements. We've already voted on that issue. So, and we have the money in the Nexus pipeline to do that. So, I mean, yes, I understand that we need to err on caution on what we're spending, but we also can't not make improvements like the prior boards have done. And that's why we're in the situation that we're in, because we haven't made investments into our elementary schools. And it's not just a Marlboro situation, it's a Lexington and a Washington situation, and they all 3 need repaired. We can't just ignore it. I mean, if you have a roof problem in your home, you don't just ignore it. You take caution and you make the repairs necessary. So we need to protect our investments as well.
Right, you start with the repair on your home. You wouldn't repair, like if you had an empty building sitting empty and you weren't using it, you wouldn't repair that roof, you would repair your roof. That's the difference.
And that's fine, but when you're looking at the situation at hand for the schooling, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so we can't just have all of our kids shoved into the 2 elementary schools anyways. So, I mean, if we're going to do the social distancing, we have a 3rd building, so it makes sense to make those repairs. And we already decided that back in January, when the financial report obviously was a little different for the financial forecast, but we keep bringing that up and bringing it up, and we've already made the decision to go ahead and do that. So as a good board member, I mean, at the end of the day, we just need to move on and do what's best.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, just
More than 3 buildings. I mean, you keep saying, well, there's 2 buildings or 3 buildings. What about the middle school and the high school? Is opening Marlboro going to help the crowding there, or are we going to say, well, we're going to have the elementary kids there all the time, but the high schoolers are going to do 2?
well,
I mean,
bigger.
like, do we only have two buildings, or we only have 3 buildings? It's all the kids in the district, schoolers and high schoolers count in that as well. Those big consolidated schools we have for middle and high school, those
Well,
mega consolidated schools we have that are bad for education for some people. And I haven't heard what we're going to do with those.
Well, I would say we don't know what the future is yet, Scott, but I would say that middle schoolers and high schoolers are probably going to be better capable to deal with blended learning grade school children when parents have to go to work. So, of course, we want to maximize and deal with the social distancing as much as we can. But like I said, we can't just make buildings bigger. You guys didn't cut a building here that we can reproduce. Otherwise, it might be consideration to handle that later on.
Mr. Knoll, would you be able to speak to the reduced projected enrollment of approximately 60 students that's projected to be lost each year from here forward on the 5-year forecast, and how, what suggestions you might be able to give for additional programming or anything we could do to increase enrollment in that particular area?
Well, I think the data over the last 10 years has been pretty clear that we've been on a steady decline of enrollment in the district. So I'm sure Ms. Brugger probably used that trend data to articulate what that would look like over the 5 years. Was it 60 kids? Is that kind of what you said, Katie?
The forecast is a loss of 60 kids per year going forward. And my question just is, what is your vision for bringing more students into our district?
Well, I think the first thing is we need to keep our people here. I think that's issue number 1. We need to keep our open enrollment kids coming. We need to keep our resident kids coming and make sure we're offering a good product across the board: academics, athletics, fine arts, extracurriculars, everything. So to me, that's my biggest concern. I mean, we don't have a whole bunch of resident kids out there, but the ones we have, we got to make sure they're coming here. So I think that's priority number 1. I mean, other things that you can do that we've already talked about is, reach out to open enrollment out kids. We do have a group of them. We have, let's say, 300 that come in and 150 leave, for whatever reason. So to me, I think we try to target, educate those families of kids that are leaving, and they leave for different reasons. Some of it's where they live in proximity. Folks maybe southern part of the district might live closer to Louisville schools, for example, and I understand that. But I think we need to keep focused on the kids we have, the resident kids, our open enrollment kids in, make sure they're still coming. And then those open enrollment out kids, I think we need to focus on as well.
I agree.
And whatever other kind of programming. I mean, as you know, I've tried to do some things here in the district to increase our programming, our STEM and STEAM and education fabrication labs. I mean, we've done some nice things here over the years. And I think we just need to keep looking for more innovative ideas and ways to attract kids to Marlington.
Well, do you think this might be a time maybe to reach out to some of our homeschoolers and promote our digital program or something like that? And
I've mentioned our homeschoolers in the past. And like I said, I have a lot of good friends that are homeschoolers, and one of them's right down the street. And here's what they tell me every time I talk to Mr. Knoll: hey, it's great. We love Marlington. It's all good. But we want a Christian-based education, and we're going to keep our kids at home. And I totally respect that, as I've said in the past. They're all great people, and I love that type of education as well. And we reached out to them in the past, and I think some folks were offended, to be honest with you, before I got here. But that was the comment I got. I talked to those folks. I think at the end of the day, they want a Christian-based education. and I think we need to respect that. Absolutely.
Joe,
And I know I've asked about this before. Do you think there's any possibility that we could look into our early learning program to see if instead of it being a Stark County program housed at Marlington, we could make it a Marlington program that services our Marlington kids? Do you see?
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Yep.
And have you been able to look into any of these, or what's the time frame? It sounds like time is of the essence with.
Well, that's not going to happen by fall. There's absolutely no way we're going to be close to trying to do that. But I've asked Mr. Swisher to look at what that might look like moving forward. But obviously, we're not going to be able to pull that off come September with what we're dealing with now. Wanting to get close.
Joe, I think you done
Go
a
ahead.
good as far as the open enrollment out kids. I'd say we're in a pretty good position right now, specifically elementary schools having space that appealing to a lot of families, given the circumstances. And if we get them to come into the school, COVID-19 thing passed, there's a pretty good chance to stay here.
Right. I think I heard what you said. You were kind of coming in and out, but I agree. I mean, this is a good opportunity. Hopefully, we can get some families to reevaluate and come our way. Our open enrollment period is closed, as you guys know. It closed May 15th, and it wasn't a substantial increase of kids. In all honesty, it was not.
Yeah, but we weren't really reaching out to those people. I mean, was there anything? I mean, as far as that open enrollment period, is that district policy or is that state guidelines?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the state and we have a policy that kind of coincides with that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Under the circumstances, would we want to extend that period and
like I said,
do
I have
some
to
advertising?
look at the legalities of doing that. But that's something we could look into.
Yeah, that would be beneficial to try to attract more of our own district kids back into the district.
Right.
Joe, do you know open enrollment out numbers by now or not?
You know what, Doc? I don't have those in front of me, but I can talk to Lee and we can get an update on open enrollment out. Right. Okay.
Mr. Knoll, I also had a question. I mean, I do feel it would be beneficial. Marlboro is still not on our website. So as a parent that lives in Marlboro Township, I feel like it would be really beneficial if I, lived in Marlboro and wasn't aware of the situation, that would also be beneficial and might also increase our numbers if we had that documentation on the website. I know that we talked about that a few meetings back and we were supposed to get that on the website.
Right. I thought Ms. Sutton need to help me on that. I know when we pull up schools, Marlboro shows up there as the school. Is the picture of the school not there yet? Ms.
Yeah,
Sutton?
no, I'm actually on our
Schools
district
page, it doesn't
right
show.
now.
The picture is not there of the building?
No.
Okay.
Nope, just on our story part, but when it shows the actual building that we have,
Almost
on.
we've had people, asking about that and asked on.
Yeah.
Well, if you click on the schools tab, does Marlboro Elementary pop up on the schools tab?
On the drop down, it picks up, but if you click on that schools page, it does not exist there. There's no.
So, Carol, can you help me? I know you and I have talked about doing that. Who's in kind of helping us get that picture up and running, I guess?
So the website is back up. It took a little bit to get it updated. We have to work with our website vendor to do that. So the actual Marlboro Elementary site is up, and any information that's on the other elementary buildings is also housed on the elementary site. The actual picture of Marlboro on the district landing page, you're right, Mrs. Stevens, it's not there. We've requested to have it go put live again. And we're waiting to hear from our website vendor to do that. So it's in the works, and we'll make sure that we reach out to them again tomorrow and try to get a status update. Absolutely.
Just to clarify, it's on the landing page under school highlights. It's also, if you click on page for school highlights, which basically takes you to that portion of the landing page.
Yeah.
as well as the tab for schools. It does the drop down menu and shows Marlboro there, but on the actual page for the schools, it doesn't exist there as well. So
Basically, everything that we control, we have done. I know
Correct.
we have Mr. Siders, and I asked Miss Luke and Gilda to help, but we're just waiting. Is it eSchool View? I think it's in charge of our page.
Yes.
We're kind of at their mercy at this point, but
all right. Well, I
we'll
think we
keep
need
on.
got off topic there. We need to get back over to the forecast, don't we?
Yeah. Yep. Mr. Ted.
You guys forgot about me.
Katie, on the enrollment figures, on the financial piece of it, have you decreased personal services, insurance benefits, and purchase services for this large decrease in enrollment that you have projected?
No, that wouldn't make sense.
Why wouldn't that make sense?
You asked me if I decrease, itemize
Okay.
that a little more, please.
I'm going to ask that again. Okay, so you have projected enrollment decreasing by 60 students per year in your forecasted figures.
Yeah.
Have you appropriately then decreased salaries, benefits, purchase services that would affect students in your forecast?
No, that would not make sense. I just wanted to make sure I understood the question. Because
And I don't understand your answer, so.
let's understand each other here. Enrollment does not directly affect salaries. The cost of salaries is
Talking about positions, not salaries.
I'm sorry.
The positions that equivalent to the salaries. I think she's requires position students for the same reason that we have an additional cost by reopening Marlboro, because we're adding, a couple more positions there. I think she's saying if we're losing students at, a large amount, wouldn't that reduce the amount of positions we'd need?
Well, that's only if it is projected that we're going to reduce positions, which I haven't been notified that we're going to do that at this point, and I can only forecast based on the information that I'm given right now.
But wouldn't it make sense that you would need, as Josh said, less positions with less students?
I would agree to that. But like I said, I can only forecast off of the data and the positions that I have right now and the positions that I'm informed of that we're going to need going forward with
So the forecast include positions that are future positions, but it can't not include positions that we won't need in the future.
It can only include data based on things that we're actually doing right now. So
Okay.
it can only include data on the salaries of the individuals that are currently hired. And we are currently discussing the needs of the district, which has been presented to the board for the building reopening. And therefore, those were added into the forecast as well. Well, estimated figures, because I did put that those could change because we don't know where that's going to land. But
Well, Mr. Knoll had mentioned earlier this week that his goal would be to reopen Marlboro with just staff reallocations as much as reasonably possible that we could possibly do. And so it almost seems that your figure is perhaps arbitrary.
no, my figure is based on the needed positions that have been presented to me as needs. So until I'm told differently that we're going to need different number of staff, I can't change the numbers. Or until I'm told that we're going to make staff reductions, because I don't make curriculum decisions. I don't have the proper licensure to do that. I don't have the proper knowledge to do that. Yeah. Until I'm told that that's what we're going to do by the professional that.
Yep.
But somebody told you to reduce our enrollment. I mean, this just isn't adding up for me.
That's a trend-based item. That item is forecasted based off of historical trends, whereas staffing is based off of factual data that we actually have right now.
Okay, so all our past forecast, it seems we've been relying on OFCC enrollment data, which had us static. They had us declining for a period of time and then static from this point forward. Can you speak to that, why they're incorrect with their projections that they had given us?
Certainly. I used historical data based off of what we are funded off of, which makes perfect sense for a forecast, and based off of historical trends and data, actual data, we have been decreasing at least 2% per year in enrollment. And so it only makes sense to continue that decline in enrollment until the trend changes. Once the trend starts to change, then I can change the projection.
Well, enrollment is cyclical, as you know, that we've been up and down through all the years. It's just very surprising to me that the majority of our past forecasts, many of our numbers were just held steady. They just were flat numbers all the way out. I mean, your numbers are really large.
If you look at the way our district is funded and historical SFPR reports, which is how we receive our foundation funding, they will tell you that we have declined at least 2% annually in the past since, I believe, 2016.
Right, but I'm also talking about, some of the other funding and other expenses on flatlining the numbers and that sort of thing. How do you explain that we have gotten to this point on all our prior forecasts that we're making up this $9 million deficit that occurred from the last 6 months?
I cannot explain assumptions of other people or other treasurers. That's not my responsibility.
Right. Carolyn, she's going by what she knows as a professional to do. And if you don't want to accept her number, that's completely up to you. That's obviously where you're headed. But she's a professional. She's the one who knows what she's doing, and she's going by the trends that she is to follow. She has other professional friends that she talks with and works with, I'm sure, because that's how it goes. So if you don't agree with it and you don't believe it, that's fine. You can just say it. But to imply that Katie's numbers are off or whatever is, I just think that's really offensive. I'm offended for her if she's not offended.
I think it's very important that we ask a lot of questions on this much of a deviation. I mean, it's an extremely large deviation. It's much larger than any of us could have imagined. I'm trying to look back to, even as recent as March, when we were purchasing nearly $500,000 of buses, and Katie assured us that we had a healthy cash balance. We came back and we approved the OPSI contract. We've done technology, and Katie has consistently reassured us that we had a healthy cash balance. So I have to admit, this caught me completely off guard. I was looking back to the November 19 forecast and relying on that, and our prior forecasts have always been really strong. And I understand that going forward, things are a little unsettled, but to have, basically $9 million evaporate since November is unsettling it's going to be unsettling for many in our community.
And
we do have a healthy cash balance, as the forecast only projects projections. And so what you are looking at are projections and estimates. We have had a healthy cash balance of, what was it? What do we got? Have a healthy cash balance of, where's my reconciliation? Well, $6-7 million, whatever it is. So that is actually a factual statement. We do have a healthy cash balance. And additionally, I was also relying on the November forecast because that is the most recent board approved forecast. And so it is not completely out of line for all of those things that you just said to take place because of that data. Now the data is changing because we have a pandemic and because of a change in trend and a new forecast. And
All right, but I mean, you said you had told us that you had been working on this for 10 weeks, which takes us back to that point in time. I would have thought perhaps the word fiscal caution may have entered at least one of our conversations in when we're discussing the finances.
I'm not
But
sure. I never said 10 weeks. I'm not sure where that ever came into the conversation, but
All right. Well,
I
yeah,
know
no,
we've been working on it for a long time, but I don't remember ever saying 10 weeks.
I would just say that I don't think Carolyn's trying to offend you. I mean, I don't think it's offensive when, you know, you go from 6 months ago to now and you have a $8.3 million difference on our line 12.010 fund balance. There should be a lot of questions. Wouldn't you expect that? And people should ask for clarification when, you know, you have $8.3 million all of a sudden turn up that you're not going to have available within the next 5 years. You know,
I expect questions. I understand the questions.
yeah,
And she didn't speak to that. I did, Josh.
well, that's why I was talking about you questioning Carolyn, asking the questions, and I think it's perfectly correct for Carolyn to ask, you know, what others in her field are doing, especially around our area. Are they doing forecasts, making similar assumptions? I mean, that's a valid concern when you have a discrepancy of $8.3 million. And also, if I've got the information correct, I know everybody likes to harp on Marlboro. That's cause of everything. According to this current forecast, it's showing us in the red in 2022. Am I correct in saying that had we not reopened Marlboro, we would also be in the red by 2022, according to these same projections?
I have not done those computations yet because I'm not focused on that, but I could probably figure that out for you if you would like to.
Going to be pretty close to the red either way if it's not in the red. I just want to dispel rumors that I know certain groups are going to make saying this forecast equivalates directly to the reopening of Marlboro, and that needs to be quashed instantly.
Well, I'll speak to that too, Mr. Hagan. I mean, the reopening of Marlboro is not the number one reason why we're having the financial difficulties in conversation tonight. It is not, and it's not the only reason. And I think Ms. Berger has tried to articulate that tonight.
Yes.
However, it is a piece of the puzzle. And I think some people maybe don't understand, you know, when you talk staffing, like if you take 400,000 times 5 over the 5-year period, that's where it gets staggering. And that's, I think, what Ms. Berger is trying to point out as she kind of walks through that. But you know, I think just this whole timing right now is just crazy with the pandemic and the general revenue fund biting the dust and the sales tax and income tax numbers being as low as they are. And the governor making comments like, you're going to use your rainy day fund, schools. And guess what? That's kind of what's going to happen here. That's what the treasurer is talking about. Our rainy day fund is kind of coming to the rescue. But there's just a lot of pieces and parts that Katie has talked about tonight, but it's not just one. It's not the 10% projected cut for next year. It's not the reopening of Marlboro. It's not the property tax issue. I mean, there's 5 or 6 different things that are just, it's the perfect storm coming in and just snatching us up. So I mean, because your point's valid, Josh, that this isn't just about Marlboro, but it's 5 or 6 of those things that are adding up over time. That are really putting a lot of stress on her 5-year forecast right now.
But Marlboro is, I was going to say, but Marlboro is the thing we can control, is the point. The attorney is the thing we can control. Those are choices we're making. There are other things that are happening we can't control, but that we can control. So it is wisdom, is common sense to look at the things you can control and stop those.
So you're saying, given the current situation with coronavirus, that it's completely irresponsible to spend $400,000 more or less a year on Marlboro Elementary, even given the current circumstances? Is that what you're saying, Karen?
What I'm saying is we don't know what the plan is for returning to school. And if it's staggered attendance, you're not going to have that problem. If you have you're not going to have that problem with the schools. You'll have a certain amount of kids in the school certain days, they'll be at home certain days. If that's an order that's given, that's an order that's given. If there are so many other schools that, as you pointed out, don't have an extra building sitting around. So there's going to have to be a plan that works for all those schools. And I'm sure we can come up with something on our own too to help with that, or make our own plan if we're supposed to. But having an extra school, this is something that we don't have to use the money for. And it is, as Mr. Knoll said, the perfect storm. If we can control part of it, that's what we need to do.
Well, as far as with the standard, it may not be a requirement if we have enough space to do social distancing, and having parents have preparing ourselves to better deal with social distancing and having the kids go to school the full week. I think a lot of parents would appreciate that versus having them staggered, 2 days on, 2 days off. And I think having this extra school there, we're going to be better prepared than most districts to be able to do that with our elementary school.
But here's the problem. The treasurer is telling us we don't have money to sustain. So we all have good arguments here, folks, but we got to get down to making some decisions and some talking points here. She gave some recommendations, but I really think we got to start talking about what do you want us to do moving forward. She gave you, I think, 3 or 4 options or recommendations. I'm sorry, whatever you call those, Katie. But we got to start talking about making this work here.
Well, I got one more question for Katie.
Mm-hmm.
If this forecast is accepted by the board as presented, will this put our district into fiscal caution? Basically accepting this, I mean, is the state going to automatically put us into fiscal caution? And if so, I'm sure, Joe, you can maybe add to this. What can we expect as a result of if we're put into fiscal caution by accepting this current forecast as proposed?
I would assume so, because everything I know about that in particular is if there's a deficit 3 years out, the state usually addresses it, sends a letter, asks for a plan from the board to make some kind of reduction or some kind of plan to fix the deficit.
Right,
right. That would be my assumption.
Okay. Would they be able to put any limitations on the school as far as spending, or is it just recommendations at that point?
Based on everything I know and everything I've witnessed, it's usually just a letter and how are you guys going to fix this?
But it's up to the local district to figure that out, is what you're saying, Katie, right?
Everything I've experienced, yes.
Mr. Knoll, I heard you say recently with the COVID situation and the cut, which again did not impact us greatly for this year, which we're very grateful for. You had said that we just need to pause and take a deep breath and let the dust settle before one would make drastic changes. Could you speak to any benefit to that, to take a deeper dive into our forecast? Or
I think what I was thinking at that point was let's take a year, catch our breath, and don't reopen Marlboro next year. I think is, if I remember right, that conversation, that was my.
It wasn't actually that conversation. It was after COVID, but
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't remember, but remind me of kind of what the topic was.
Well, it was just in regard to the funding cuts specifically for COVID.
Okay.
Specifically for the COVID cuts.
Yeah,
and you said because we don't know what they're going to be, and
yeah, I guess part of me says we don't need to overreact, but now that we're seeing a 5-year forecast here, I think that kind of changes the plan. I think if we don't get something in place here, I think Katie's point is those numbers articulate so fast over year to year that we need to start thinking about what we're going to do here.
Yeah, I guess my main concern is I wouldn't, it seems like she's making some pretty conservative assumptions with this, and I'd say it looks more than a best estimate. It looks more closer to a worst case scenario than previous forecasts have been. If you compare it to those and the trends of the following years, and a lot of these line item categories that in previous forecasts had been stagnant, if not gone up and down. And then this forecast, it just seems there's a lot of things that just seem to be going straight up and real quick. I guess my concern with that is if you're too conservative and then you go and you make all kinds of cuts that may not have been necessary, it's gonna be a negative towards the students that may have been taken unnecessarily, prematurely, I would say.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think, Josh, both you and Carolyn have guaranteed levy passage for new monies. Josh, you in January, and Carolyn, I believe in March.
I don't think I ever guaranteed anything, Scott.
Yeah, I don't believe that word was used.
I believe what
Josh, you said that we'll get new money because Marlboro Fire will be passed. So some money will pass. So why don't we ask for some new money and see how?
Meeting. That's ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in a board meeting, and we've seen some ridiculous stuff. Have I guaranteed that? No, I said if we respect the voters, we have a better chance of getting votes when we need their support. That's what I said, Scott. So don't misconstrue my words and say I said something and say I guaranteed something I never did. But go ahead, look up the audio and show it to me.
Okay, I believe you, Josh. I believe. No, I stand corrected. I stand corrected. But you did more or less say the voters will follow because they were approving of opening Marlboro.
Listen to them. Yeah.
Isn't that what I mean? So what? We're not discussing that end of.
They don't count. They're less likely to follow. I'll tell you that right now. And a lot of people on your side keep expressing that. That's hurting our school district.
Well, you're not listening to the parents now. That's who you're not listening to now.
The people want a consolidated elementary that are against reopening Marlboro that, are just coming one-sided at the equation. They don't want to listen to anything, just like you guys don't want to listen to the argument for the social distancing. You're not taking that into account. No, that doesn't matter. Now it's all about money.
No, I think those are all good points, and I don't want to overreact tonight, but I just think we need to start. I mean, for our purposes, when it comes to staffing, which is later in the agenda, if that's the directive that we're given, that we want to focus on the staffing part, we need to do that. Or do we want to focus on the levy part? Do we want to do that?
Yep.
Or is Nexus money in play here? Is that enough money to put our finger in the dam and hold things off for a little bit? Or a combination? I think that's what the treasurer's saying there from that one slide. So, I guess that's just kind of some of the discussion. I mean, I don't think we need to make a decision tonight, but I think pretty soon down the road here, we're going to need a little bit of direction. We've done some things on our end. We had a grounds supervisor leave. I didn't replace him. We've had some other things go on. We're going to do some other moves, and we're not going to replace some people, which is what you do whether you're in this situation or not. I mean, it's just good business. So I think some of those moves are going to help us. But as the treasurer will tell you, it's not going to save $3 million in a year, that with some of those things. So we just, hear the numbers tonight. We just need a little direction moving forward, I think, down the road. But it's good to start talking and thinking about.
So Joe, on the staffing, are you expecting to reallocate staff to Marlboro?
Some we will. Teachers, I think we're good shape with teachers. But as you see tonight, we're going to have to hire a secretary. We're going to have to get a custodian. We're going to need probably some cooks. There's a lot more classified people than certified. a principal, you know, those types of things we're going to need to put in there, like we've talked about in the past.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? Let me clarify. We do need a music teacher. I don't want to misspeak. We do need music. Yeah.
Katie, if I can just ask you just a couple specific questions, just so I have just a couple questions I had on the forecast. In December, we had paid out a 2% bonus to all of our staff across the board, which I think was maybe around 200,000 plus. So when that was booked into your 2020 column, did you back that back out going forward when you took your arbitrary percentages, or how did you handle the bonus money that was a one-time payment that didn't go on anyone's base?
I took all anomalies into consideration when I factored in salaries.
So that was that backed out or that was left
I took it out in considering the following year's salary calculation.
So in the next year, you would remove the 200, whatever it was, and multiply that by whatever factor you were using.
Because it's not an expense that would go forward.
And on your, when you calculated the staffing, you went back to our staffing schedule and you only increased the steps of the staff if they were going to receive one, or did you just do an arbitrary percentage?
I pulled the data from certified and classified staff and did a study on what the steps calculated in percentage, and then applied it to the staff as a whole to get a percentage of what that actually looks like, and then use that number in my calculations going forward.
So does that just then, or what you're saying, does that only represent the staff that was receiving the steps? Or is it, what kind? Can you clarify a little bit?
That it represents the steps that are applicable to the staffs that receive steps. Yes.
Okay.
That document you were just showing earlier, you had comparing that. Is there any way you could email that to all of us? Because I don't think that was provided to us.
It's in Dropbox. Carolyn had asked me to put it in Dropbox.
Is
it under your treasure folder?
It should be right in there under the board agenda. I stuck it in there today.
And again, I do appreciate you putting that extra information together.
No problem. I think that actually helped me explain things better too. So I think it actually ended up being good for everybody.
I wish I'd have known it was there, because
Did you find it?
No, Carolyn, that's that.
Maybe I did the wrong one. Hang on, let me double check. Oh, you know what? I might have put it in the other one. There's another one, and I get confused on which one's which. I'll drop it in there.
Yeah, we definitely need to come up with a better system with all these documents, because half the time they're somewhere, half time they're somewhere else, and it's really confusing.
I agree.
I put all of our documents that we use for board meetings right in the Dropbox folder for this agenda meeting.
Yeah, I'm just saying some things we get by email, and then some things there, and then some things are in a folder back at, in the main folder for.
I try to put all applicable documents for board meetings in that folder is what I try to do. And we can try to round up emails as well if they get put out there.
Yeah, I'm not finding that. If anybody else knows, that'd be great if you could chime in. Does anybody else look at that prior to the meeting? Carolyn, you said you saw it?
I had that. I received it by, I believe I received it by email though, Josh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I found it. It is in there. It's under It's under the treasurer folder. It's called Made in November reconciliation.
Okay. All right.
And then Katie, I just had a couple more specific questions on the forecast. The reimbursement of the buses that you're expecting to receive, which is approximately $250,000, is that going to be shown as income, or where am I going to see that on the forecast?
That is on as an expenditure, and then it's taken off because it's going to be a reduction of expenditure. So it's currently shown as expenditure for fiscal year 2020 because we know that that is going to actually, it's actually transpired, but it is.
So where am I going to see the $250,000 reduction in expenditures?
You'll see that on capital outlay.
Okay,
But
so capital outlay
there are a lot of
should
different.
be reduced by the cost of the buses as well as the reimbursement, right?
Capital outlay isn't really a trend line. Capital outlay is more item specific because it's based off of certain purchases that we make. So that one's a little tough to.
So that's the projected actual purchases you plan to make. Is that correct?
Just based off of the specific things.
So then the purchases really would be closer to $500,000 because you would be adding, you have reduced that figure by the $250,000, or?
Yeah, it's been backed off. Correct.
Okay, and then what did you book for the savings on the school having been shut down for 3 months?
There is no specific amount regarding that. It's just going to be where the expenditures land. If I had a guess, with personnel, if I had a educated guess, and I do have an educated guess, I'm thinking that we probably will save close to 250, 300,000. But again, that is a guess.
How much?
250, 300,000 in personnel salaries. But like I said,
So is that reduction booked in here?
it's factored in.
What I would look at, Carolyn, is the previous forecast's projected amount before we voted to reopen Marlboro, and compare that to our actual amount this year. And that actually comes out to 290,000.
The trouble with the personnel line item is there are a lot of.
Exactly. It's not just Marlboro in that, but
there are a lot of moving pieces in that line item is really the trouble with that. But I have considered all of those moving pieces in my calculations.
So under purchase services, you've already reduced the heating and electric and bus fuel and that sort of thing?
Well, I'm talking about personnel. Now, purchase services,
right?
That line item, you likely won't have near the savings that you do in personnel. I mean, you'll have some savings, but there's no real way to know until it all shakes out.
Okay. And then I was just wondering.
And actually, it could be made because that projection was based off of, well, not the projection, but the actual was based off of where our spending is now. And I factored in what the foundation funding is going to land at, and then looked at encumbrances like that spreadsheet I sent you. It could be argued that our now that you bring that up, you've got my wheels spinning, that perhaps our 2020 expenditures could even be slightly higher had the epidemic not happened, and therefore the trend line maybe should even be slightly higher because of that. So, but there's no way to.
Tell me that one more time. Why our expenses go up for electric and heat and bus fuel when we're
now, to me, it's not going to be probably significant or even worth thinking about, but you just,
Hey, I don't really think you need to look for additional expenses. I think you've got enough booked.
I know, right? We're going the wrong way.
Just for the record, Just a question I had. I know previous treasurers, specifically Ryan Jones, often said we're a district on the guarantee. And I was wondering if you could elaborate what he meant by that.
Okay, well, currently there is really no guarantee because the funding formula has been frozen for these 2 years. So in a sense, it's not moving. The funding formula. We're frozen at the rate that we were last year, and we don't know what the funding formula will be going forward. So while we were on the guarantee historically, we don't know what it's going to be going forward.
So you took us off the guarantee for the forecast?
No, the funding formula is literally frozen right now for last year and this year. So it's not a matter that I have taken us off or done anything with that. It's just the funding formula is frozen. So funding is frozen, aside from items that are not applicable to that.
Any more questions? I mean, I look back over the forecasts, and we've had, if we count our interim treasurers, we've had 7 different treasurers, and our forecasts have been pretty similar throughout the years. And just looking to this one to see, I just can't wrap my mind around how this can be so hugely different, and from all these inaccuracies that have occurred. And it just, it seems like perhaps it's, like Josh mentioned, absolute worst case scenario.
I would say absolute worst case scenario. She pointed out that.
Well, yeah, there's another one. I'm sorry. Nearly the worst case.
It could
Like,
be worse.
Scenario than a best estimate. But there's a lot of unknowns, and I understand that. And I wasn't trying to be offensive or demeaning to you. It's just comparing old forecast. It obviously has been done quite a bit differently.
Yeah, and that's understandable, and I understand all your questions. I just know that my assumptions are based on historical data and trends, and where we are at right now, and with the best information available that I can get a hold of right now. And especially with the unknowns with federal or the government funding cuts, it is best practice to be conservative right now.
That 10%, I mean, now you said you heard that from, or is that just a number? Where did you get the 10% from?
The 10% is from a webinar that I watched. I've actually watched several, multiple, but this one was from one that had a representative, Aaron Rausch from ODE, and also representatives from K-12, which is a well-renowned software forecasting software company. And they went through a lot of what's going on right now. And their recommendation was the 10%.
For school districts or in general?
This was only for school districts. Now, I have heard other recommendations to flatline what you got this past year. I've heard recommendations to go as far as 10% 2021 and 5% 2022. Some districts are going that route. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I feel like that's a little extreme. That's just my opinion. So based on those 3, I mean, I break it down in my brain as 3 options because that's kind of how I've heard it. 10% to me was the middle ground. It wasn't extreme. It wasn't on the lower end. And that's kind of where I fell with that decision. And I think Joe felt pretty comfortable with that as well, didn't you, Joe?
Yeah, that's correct. We had a superintendent's meeting last week, and there were some comments from James Carmen, who's the treasurer at DSC, and he relayed actually what second scenario that Katie mentioned, that next year 10%, the following year 5% reduction, and then year 3 go back to 2019 funding, and that's what some districts are doing right around us. But I appreciate the treasurer's perspective. I mean, I just relayed what folks were saying when I was at the meeting, but she didn't feel that 5% cut in year 2 was appropriate. So I understand that.
Well, and I feel that once we get to a solid number on 2021, because at some point, governor's going to come out and say what we're going to have for 2021, then we can better forecast something for 2022 based on what happens in 2021. You know, maybe we'll get 5% for 2021 instead of 10. Well, then we won't worry about 2022 as much. Maybe we'll end up with 15% for 2021. Well, then we might want to be thinking about 2020. You know what I mean? It's all based. We just don't know. This is all new, uncharted territory. And
How much federal funding did you book back in? I know for 2020, we had nearly 400,000 of the CARES funding. How much federal funding offset do you have in for the 2021 year?
well, right now I don't have. Oh, you mean the breakout for the CARES? Are you speaking specifically to CARES or
Well,
what?
CARES and any other COVID stimulus money that they may be offering as offset for the 2021 year.
Well, CARES would be the main thing. I don't really have any other items.
So the CARES, well, is the CARES money not hitting till 2021? The offset of the 400?
It's available per ODE on expenditures starting back in March that were purchased back in March and forward. And they said the application will be available, I believe, starting in June, as early as June. But they said to keep checking their website.
But I was specifically speaking to offset the 10%.
Well,
Well, the CARES funding does.
Not that CARES fund, we, in our minds, is offsetting the $400,000 cut.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
Are you getting an additional one or not?
No,
Okay,
that's
so
all we're
it's the
getting.
400, and in our minds, that was the offset, so we can't use it a second time.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You've got a good point there.
So you don't have anything factored for any possible federal subsidies coming for offsets?
We've not been made aware of anything else yet. So we are keeping our ears open.
Katie, can you explain? And I'm sure we went over this, but I didn't quite understand why in the previous forecast we were projected to have, the flatline purchase services, and I guess you're doing it now based off of previous years. But do you have any idea why previously it wasn't that wasn't accounted for on that forecast? Were there any notes for that?
Well, there's the assumptions for the previous forecast, but I don't know that it really speaks to why it was flatlined or anything like that.
I mean, your assistant treasurer could probably help you with that because she would have prepared several of those forecasts in past years.
Well, it's not my place to speak for other people's forecasts, so I can.
Well, she's in your office.
Our forecast for the school, so we need to figure out why there's such a discrepancy there.
I mean, that's $4 million. It seems like a really sizable increase when previous treasurers didn't
Well, as I had
make the same assumption you were.
As I had spoken before, it's based off of actual data and historical trends, and you can make cuts to the spending, which changes the trajectory of the spend. And so then you're going like this right now, you'll close the gap and you'll close that $4 million down by doing that. Does that make sense? Or do I need to start getting my charts out again?
Are you talking to me or Josh?
Anybody who'll listen. because it's all trend based.
Yeah.
So you get what I'm saying? It's more of a straight line. There shouldn't be any of this when you're working on a trend. It should be a straight, consistent line.
Well,
So
I mean, there may have been reasons for the previous trend that would not make it just continue to climb. Like if,
correct.
you know, for 2 years they decided to put more money into something, but then that was going to drop off and then flatline. You can't just say, oh, it's going like this. It's going to keep going that way.
Well, and that's correct. And that a good example of that is the wellness dollars that are not guaranteed past 2021.
Yeah.
And I have worked that into the forecast in my purchase services. But as you'll see in my one document, that I have put a steady 4% increase in based on historical trends, which are significantly more than 4% increases. So
on the wellness, I know we specifically hired some additional personnel with that. And I think Joe also did some reallocation of personnel to be paid for with that. The
Right.
additional salary that we hired specifically because we had this extra money, you have that going away after that period of time, right? Or did you leave all that personnel in?
all personnel have been left in until I've been told that they will not exist after the wellness funds.
Okay,
Because-
so, I mean, I'm assuming you and Joe and Carol sit down and work on this and talk about it. And
Yes.
I mean, when we create jobs because we have a fund, I mean, our anticipation would be if the fund would go away, we have to consider the possibility that the
I've asked,
position would go away.
I've asked the question, if the money goes away, will the positions go away? And I've been told no at this point.
They're gonna stay?
We create positions because we have a need, not because there's the money. We create a position because there's a need. Like when I said we're going to hire another SRO, there was a need when it came to school safety, hardening versus heartening. Same thing with counseling. I've been talking about mental health and wellness. There is a need in the district. So that need was to hire another counselor. So that's how we base our decisions. It's do we have a need?
You had said you had spoken to Mr. Carmen in regard to the COVID and all that. Did the COVID cuts into funding? Did he express to you how many districts are going straight from being financially secure to fiscal emergency or fiscal caution, wherever we're going to end up
He did not.
when this is submitted? He didn't say.
No. I've
Mm.
just watched some different webinars that have implied that depending on how long this lasts, there could be effects on districts.
And just, I forgot to ask you on, I'm assuming the purchase services has probably some repairs on the repairs for Marlboro that's going to be paid for with the Nexus funds. Is that repair bill or future elementary repair bills factored in the 5-year forecast, or is that in another fund?
If they're being paid for with Nexus funds, it all comes out of Fund 070. So the answer would be no.
So that has been factored in.
Did I pass the test?
Are there any more questions?
Yes, Katie.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm
Thank
done.
you. Appreciate all your explaining, and I appreciate knowing this document that was added today. I wish we'd have got an email or something, because I didn't even, the Dropbox sometimes doesn't even tell us things were added to the Dropbox until like a day or so later sometimes. So yeah, I looked everything over last night when we got the final version of the agenda. I didn't know that this was to come. Otherwise, I could have looked this over in detail.
Oh, the one with all the colors?
The
Talking about that one?
November reconciliation. Yeah, the one that has purple.
That one was just created yesterday because Carolyn was asking about it. And so it's not like I've had it for very long. It was just a kind of an extra piece. And then she had asked me to share it with the other board members, and I literally just dropped it in there
Yeah.
very
I,
recently.
I didn't even know it was in there, and I wish I'd have seen it so I could have studied this prior to the meeting, because this is, part of, one of the things I wanted to be able to look at, prior to making a decision here. And, just the fact that we have, $8.3 million different, in the 5-year forecast. I just want to do due diligence to make sure, that, and coupling that together with the fact that, if this is approved, it's going to put the district right into fiscal caution. And I'd like to make sure 100% that doing so isn't going to, equate to limitations from the state automatically, from this point on, before we, I'd like to study, this as well as the whole thing to get a better grasp on it. No offense to you. I just want to understand it, just because it's so much different than the previous forecasts. So, at this point, I'd like to study this more before I can honestly vote and say, yes, I want to understand it. No offense to you. It's not that I think you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of information here, and I just want to be able to understand it before I can, put a vote forward that could, cause issues with the district. And
Well, we're required to file by the end of May.
I know.
And the alternative would be if the board does not agree with my numbers, then you'll need to come up with well-reasoned numbers of your own, to amend the forecast, because it is the board's forecast.
Okay.
But I would caution you and make sure that they are
Solid.
well-reasoned.
Yeah.
Katie, we do need to rely on you. We don't have the knowledge to do this 5-year forecast. That's yours. However, it does appear to me that very, very aggressive estimates were made on expenses and revenue. I can't really speak to, because I think that is it's going to be very difficult to project revenue, but it appears that we have some things in place that just made this some very aggressive estimates that we've never seen ever before in our forecasts. And I think that's what's making it difficult to comprehend the magnitude of
As a
this.
treasurer, it's very dangerous for me to not project based on historical trends, because if they do come to fruition based on the district's past spending, then you're going to look at me like, why didn't you?
Yeah, that's understandable.
So I'm doing my due diligence and projecting based off of what I know, which is historical trends.
So I want to ask the question, make sure you're not asking her to change her numbers, though, because she has obviously done this, as she said, in due diligence. So what is the alternative here?
Well, due to the discrepancy, Karen, I think we should all do our due diligence as well to verify this information. $8.3 million discrepancy, it's unlike any other past forecast. And I think it's board's responsibility to approve this report. We really need to understand it and, do our due diligence to make sure everything is correct as well, and make sure we understand what it is and what the repercussions are, voting for a forecast that puts the district into fiscal caution. We should definitely do our due diligence as well.
Katie, is there anything in that document that you gave to the folks tonight that says anything different than what you have talked about tonight?
No.
Okay.
It might be good, since like Josh said, we don't necessarily get timely notifications in Dropbox. If you maybe could just send a quick email when you drop something in there, especially when we're coming up against a board meeting, it might be helpful going forward. Are there extensions on the 5-year forecast, or it's a set in stone?
Set in stone.
And the date that you have to,
31st, which is the Sunday.
You're
May
gonna,
31st is when you'd submit it?
you're gonna need to approve this thing by next week, because if there are issues with the submission, then you risk.
You have to, yeah. I mean, what are the risks if it's late, or if something's incorrect and then you had to redo it after the due date? Do you know?
Repercussions. It would be an audit ding for sure. You guys need to have it approved, I'd say by the 27th, just to make sure we get it submitted with no problems.
Okay.
So Josh, are you asking to have a motion to table? Is that what you're asking for? Or are you asking?
Yeah, I'd probably table it at this point, just so I can do what I believe is.
Okay,
Yeah.
then is there a motion to table approving the 5-year forecast as presented in marked exhibit 00?
Yeah, I'd make the motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on tabling the motion?
I guess my question is, what's going to change in 6 days?
Right.
I mean, Ms. Brugger gave her information that her numbers are the same from what I'm hearing.
Joe, I don't think this is anything against Katie's numbers or anything else. I think Josh has just asked for more time to digest the additional information that he didn't realize was sent to him that does have a significant amount of detail to support her 5-year
I guess that's my
forecast.
question. The treasurer said there was nothing additional in that document. It's everything that she articulated tonight, unless I'm misunderstanding, Katie.
The motion on the floor is
You guys are all,
There's nothing additional, or was there?
It's all the same information. It's just in a different format.
Okay.
You can find all that data in my assumptions as well.
Okay.
And the document that was sent out last Friday.
yeah.
Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
No.
Dr. Mason,
No.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-2.
Moving to the personnel consent agenda. Mr. Knoll, if you would like to make your recommendations for the hires.
Okay. Recommend a motion to approve the following administrative contract. Ms. Mort, principal over at Marlboro. Certified resignations. Recommend a motion to accept the resignation of Aaron Mail, elementary teacher, effective June 4, 2020. Recommend a motion to accept the resignation of Timothy Scott Pittman, high school business teacher, effective June 5th of 2020. Recommend a motion to accept the resignation of Gary Bush, high school computer teacher, effective June 5th, 2020. Recommend a motion to approve the 1-year leave of absence for Aubrey McAllister, middle school teacher for the 2020-21 school year. Under continuing contracts, recommend a motion to approve the continuing contract beginning with the 2020-21 school year for the following. Mr. Pendergast. Under number 4, the certified teachers, recommend a motion to approve the following limited teacher contracts. And if you don't mind, I'll just say all of those as presented. Number 5, certified hires. Recommend a motion to hire the following teachers for the 2020-21 school year. A 1-year limited contract pending verification, satisfactory credentials, BSA and FBHX as required. Those folks as presented. Number 6, certified non-renewals. These are our tutors. Recommend a motion to approve the non-renewal of the following individuals in 1 or more tutor positions at the end of the 2019-20 school year due to the ability of funding those individuals as presented. Under classified, Number 1, classified reduction in force. Recommended motion to approve the reductions in force for the following individuals at the end of the 2019-20 school year by classification. Those folks as presented. Number 2, on the recall, recommended motion to recall the following for the 2020-21 school year as presented. Classified employment. Recommended motion to approve the following staff members be granted their second 2-year limited contract beginning with the 2020-21 school year. Those folks as presented. Number 4, recommended motion to approve the following staff members be granted their first 2-year limited contract beginning with the 2020-21 school year. Those individuals as presented as well. Classified hire. Recommended motion to hire the following pending verification of satisfactory credentials, BSAT and FBI checks as required. Those folks as presented. Summer employment. Recommended motion to approve the following for the migrant program 2020. Employment pending verification of satisfactory credentials, BSAT and FBI checks as required. All those folks as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for all the hires he just?
We have a little bit more, Ms. Gabbert.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We have some summer employment folks. Those individuals as presented as well, and that should do it.
Okay, sorry. Is there a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation for the hires that he just read through?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I just like to say, Scott Pittman, Gary Bush, really appreciate their friendship and their great work at Marlington. And I hope that they are just fulfilled and moving on, doing more of what they really want to do with their lives. So I congratulate them on that.
Joe, could you just answer just a general question on the counselor position? Is that an additional position for the school, or that's replacing?
No, that's our gal that we hired towards the end of the school year. If you remember late, we hired her
Right.
through the ESC. Now we're going to hire her as a Marlington employee, and she'll be funded with those wellness dollars the treasurer talked about earlier.
Okay, so that position will continue to be paid with the wellness dollars?
Correct.
Is that going to be an ongoing contract, or is that year to year?
Just like every other employee that we have.
So is it going to be we're going to use wellness dollars, that's next year, but then the following year, that's going to come out of the budget?
That is correct. That'll come under general fund. If we lose all those wellness dollars, like the treasurer talked about tonight, if we lose all those wellness dollars, those dollars are going to come back into that general fund. And it's going to impact that line that she referred to earlier.
Okay. Well, I just, she, in the forecast, the recommendation was made to fill positions, the newly open positions that are, should not fill positions that are not absolutely necessary. Is that the wording that was in there? And I know it's going to be tough decisions to make, but we're going to have to decide to deal with some of this. What positions are we going to say are absolutely necessary and what are not?
That's what I referred to earlier. That's the decision you guys are going to have to make if we get to that point. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. Well, we're going to need recommendations as well.
Yeah, the treasurer gave you guys a good list tonight. Like I said, it's good food to start thinking about.
And as far as all these hires here, and, the rehires, is there any new hires in here besides the?
Yeah.
Aren't replacing, any on positions that were vacated is what I'm coming to here.
We're vacated. Yeah, we had an English teacher at the high school. So on that retirement, we rehired that and filled that one. The classified hires, like I talked about, we needed some people at Marlboro. So you have your secretary and more to come once you get into that, interviewing those people. So there'll be more there as well. The whole migrant thing's paid by migrant money, so that's its own entity. You guys all know that, right? We have migrant dollars that pays for that program. I don't know, Miss Sutton, anybody else in there that I might be missing? You talked about language arts. We have those business positions open now. You know, that's a conversation we're going to have. And that's what the three of us are doing based on what we heard tonight. What are we going to do with those spots at the high school? So, but we
Mr. Knoll,
and we're going to move forward as of tonight. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Sutton.
I just was going to add the foreign language position that's being vacated by Mr. Shields'
Right.
retirement. Currently at this point, we are not looking to backfill that position.
Correct.
So is that going to affect the Spanish program? Is there another high school?
No, it will not negatively affect our Spanish offering, but what it did do was eliminate the possibility for American Sign Language.
Katie, please call the roll. You're on mute.
Uh-oh, there you go.
Now it's me.
Uh-oh.
Mrs. Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphrey,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Since we'll be celebrating graduation in a non-traditional way this year, I just wanted to offer a few remarks to our graduates and say congratulations to our Marlington class of 2020. When the school year first began, I don't think anyone could have guessed it would quite end like this. In spite of the recent challenges, students, staff, and parents all came together in these last few months to do their part to make our relatively quick transition to remote learning a total success. Best of all, they were able to accomplish this while preserving the quality of education for Marlington, for which Marlington is known. I commend you all on this impressive achievement. Having said that, I don't mean to imply that this was easy. It certainly wasn't. Routine provides an important structure to life. It helps us organize our days and plan for the future. When we unexpectedly find ourselves in a situation where our routine is turned upside down, we're faced with the challenge of having to make life work under a new set of rules. Success is suddenly dependent on our ability to change. We must adapt or fail. I believe every challenge in life comes with a blessing attached, an opportunity to learn and grow from the experience if we're willing to see it as more than just a problem. We can leverage the situation to our advantage if we work with it rather than against it. In this way, I feel the Marlington class of 2020 has learned one of the most important lessons of all, a life lesson. And that is, if the only thing constant in life is change, then success depends on our ability to adapt to those changes. Science tells us that if it isn't the fittest that survive, but the creatures that are best at adapting to the changes in their circumstances or environment. Change forces us to be more creative, get outside of our comfort zone, try something new, or move in a different direction. When we get off the beaten path of our usual routine, we often find interesting things along the way. That's when obstacles can turn into opportunities. So keep your goals clear, but be flexible in your approach to them because life is often an exercise and improvisation. Author Alton Toffler said, "Change isn't merely necessary to life, it is life." So move forward with confidence, knowing that you already have everything you need within you to navigate the changing tides of life. You've already proven it to yourselves in these last 3 months by discovering you're more directed, conscientious, and disciplined than you probably thought you were. You committed to tasks with a higher degree of responsibility and saw them through under circumstances that weren't necessarily ideal. You rose to the challenge and met it head on. Because of that, you're not the same students that returned to class in January. You're better and smarter because you know how to adapt. So wherever your path leads you after today, always remember to ask yourself, how can I make this experience work for me? What am I to learn from it? How can I be better because of it? Business tycoon Richard Branson certainly understood this when he said, every success story is a tale of constant adapting, revision, and change. If there were a test for success, it would probably come from mathematician Peter Hilton, who insisted adaptability to change is itself a hallmark of successful education. I couldn't agree more, and I'm proud to say you all passed with flying colors. Congratulations to the class of 2020 and the best in your future endeavors. Does anyone else want to make any remarks? Mr. Knoll, would you like to go over the announcements?
Sure. The big part of the end of the year here is device collection and materials. So we see our elementary is on the 27th. We're going to do an 8th grade graduation, kind of a parade type style in cars coming up. On the 28th and 29th, we have elementary and high school device collection. May 30th and 31st, we have our graduation ceremony at different increments during the day. So the high school has done a great job getting all that prepared. June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, as you can see there, also device collection from 9 to 7 and 9 to 3 on the 3rd to try to wrap everything up for the school year.
And the next board meeting, we will need a special meeting for.
Make an announcement real quick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just want to give a shout out. Today's my daughter's 16th birthday. So happy 16 today. So I just wanted to say happy birthday, Katerina, if you're watching, which hopefully you're in bed. But if you're not,
Birthday.
It's almost 10 o'clock. You might be in bed.
birthday. So,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
and if you're any of Katerina's friends are watching, which I highly doubt, she'd be more than happy to get a happy belated birthday call tomorrow. Thank you.
Special meeting for the purposes of voting on the 5-year forecast, which we will need to do next week.
What's that? What did you say, Carolyn?
We need to set a date for a special meeting for next week to vote on the 5-year forecast.
Wednesday,
What's the date on that?
the 27th.
I cannot do that night.
What?
I cannot do Wednesday, the 27th.
At any time?
Correct.
Hey, Katie, what about the 28th? You know, an AM meeting. Would that work?
Josh, I wouldn't be able to do an AM meeting just with my work schedule. So, I'm open any evening, so I'll make it work either way, but just not a morning day, please.
I
Okay.
would attempt Tuesday just
Okay.
out of caution.
Tuesday evening?
I would, if people can make it. Yeah.
That would work for me. Thank you.
And that would be the 26th?
Yes.
Day after Memorial.
And what time works for everyone?
I can make any time work. So whatever's convenient.
Good. At 7 or
Keep it at
Earlier, later, better.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, all right?
That would work great. Thank you.
And it's just a one item, right? Just a 5-year forecast discussion for the treasurer.
That, to my knowledge, that's the only thing that didn't get voted on
Okay.
tonight. And then the regular meeting, June 4th at 7 p.m. and June 18th at 7 p.m. Is there any need for executive session, Mr. Knoll?
No, ma'am, we're good. Thank you.
Is there much to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Any discussion? Katie, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gaber,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Motion approved 5-0.
Hey,
Thank you.
get one more birthday for Katerina from everybody.
What's that?
Can I get one more happy birthday for my daughter?
Oh,
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys.
good.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you.